Hello everyone, people of Twitch.tv. Hey there, what's up, what's good? I'm gonna switch to the camera view in a second, hold up. Can you hear me just fine? Everything sounding alright? I'm just putting on my gloves because it's very, very cold out here in the southern hemisphere. Y'all enjoying summer out there? You folks from the north, are y'all enjoying summer? Hello! It's been a while! Okay, I missed this. I'm just realizing. Oh, y'all, I miss summer. Please give me more. Please give me summer. I miss summer. At least I get to wear these gloves. I cut them myself, if you couldn't tell. They're not great looking from an objective standpoint, but I like them, so I'm gonna keep wearing them. Plus, they keep me warm. I'd love to, but sadly, immigration is complicated. Also, yeah. Speaking of immigration, damn, you guys' election is kind of like a little bit of a riot right now. Yo, I'm doing pretty well. I'm doing pretty all right, all things considered. I mean, I was sick for most of last week, so that wasn't great, and I haven't been able to work on any videos since then, pretty much. So I still haven't like started out working on my next video just yet. But like as far as like my own mental health right now and stuff, like yeah, I'm doing alright. I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good. Just bought like the order. Just placed the order for my new PC, my new gaming PC. It's an absolute monster. It's gonna be insane. I'm so hyped for it. But it's just gonna arrive in like I think a week from now, from what they said there on the website. So yeah, by the 11th. This might be your last stream with this PC, but there's a chance this is only your second to last. We'll see how things turn out. But yeah, so that was pretty cool. And also, yeah, now I'm better. I was sick, but now I'm better. So, you know, that's good. At least I'm kind of cold. It's very fucking cold out here. Like I'm not joking. These are not just for show. It's cold. But yeah, I guess we can start watching. I mean, maybe we can talk some news beforehand. I can open Twitter and we can see some stuff. I'll actually lower the music just because it's bothering me. It's not even for you guys, it's literally just bothering me because it's a bit too loud for me. Well, let me know if you can still hear the music. You don't want it. Corin, you really don't want it. Dun, 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 dun. Love this music. Can you guys hear the music at this level? Capture. Suppose so, but like, dude, you have no idea. I mean, it's not. I mean, for your standards, it's probably not even that cold, but still, like, man, it's not as pleasant as it sounds. Okay, that's good to know. All right, here we have my Chrome. Here's the source of the music. But yeah, of course, this is the video we're gonna watch. It's from JebTube or JebZone now, I guess. It's a whole ass video essay on why Sonic Frontiers sucks, actually. And like, here's the thing, right? I'm super down for like listening to different opinions and stuff, right? And I love like disagreeing with people. Not necessarily, nobody loves disagreeing with people, but I know I don't mind disagreeing with people, and I like watching video essays with like different opinions and stuff. For the sake of seeing like different perspectives and like understanding the stuff I like better. You guys know I like Sonic Frontiers. Well, you guys also know I know it's a very flawed game in like a lot of ways. It's a very flawed game. So I would be down to just 11 degrees Celsius. Jeez, that's cold. Yeah, I never felt that cold before. Right here, it's I believe like around 17 Celsius, but that's too cold for me. That's already too cold for me. But here's the thing, right? So ideally, I would have just watched this video, especially because I like I like Jeb's content. I really do. Like I've watched some of his stuff in the past. Like some of his videos on like the older Sonic games, they're pretty good, right? But I started watching the beginning of this one, and I couldn't help but like feel immediately detached. To me, that's very cold. Shut up. Detached from like I didn't want to watch it. Here's the thing. I enjoy. That is cold. That is cold. I didn't want to watch it cause man, I'm just tired. I'm just tired of like, you know, there's a point. I like discussing. I like sharing opinions about media and whatnot, and that's constructive, right? And I'm down to sitting down here and listening to some constructive criticism. But not only am I so tired of the Sonic discourse at this point, there's a lot of it that is valid and a lot of it that maybe isn't, and people get really meticulous, and it's hard to say if that's a good thing or not. I'm not about to like criticize how people criticize media. Like, that's up to you. You are allowed to think whatever you want out of media. But I'm genuinely just kind of like done. Yeah, here's the thing. So I saw it came out, and I watched like the first few minutes, and there was this like sort of aura that was like, oh god, no. Please, no. And like, I don't want to be bad faith here either, but a lot of what he said to me came off as bad faith. But I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, because again, I like this guy's content, and I want to watch the video, but I really didn't want to watch it by myself. You know what, like, okay, so I feel like I have to morally, because I don't want to feel like I'm just disregarding other opinions I disagree with. But also, I just don't want to watch it. I didn't want to watch it by myself, because I was like, shit, I had no desire to put 2 hours of my free time into watching someone complain about a game I like. You know, I just didn't want to do it. This is supposed to be entertainment. Why should I use my time on this, right? And then it crossed my mind. Okay, why don't I turn this into content? And like, nah, this is gonna be fun, because I'm with you guys, and with being with you guys, I'm able to just like pause at any point and just share my opinions and where I agree and disagree and stuff, and give my own points of view and whatnot. Just as you said, Moonbeam, like being able to give all my own take on top of the video already makes watching it kind of worth it. Because if I were to watch this by myself, I would be pausing and explaining my points to no one. Because I do that a lot. If I watch video essays that I disagree with, I'm usually just pausing all the time and just talking to myself about how I disagree with point X or point Y. That's just something I do. So why not make this into content? Why not sit down and watch this with all you guys? So yeah, depending on how this goes, I can even maybe edit it down and turn it into a video on YouTube if it ends up being like really constructive and stuff. But either way, we're here to have some fun. This is also an excuse to not explode my laptop because I'm tired of overheating this little thing here, and it's on this final days of streaming now, so want to give it a lighter day, pretty much. So we're just gonna watch it. And yeah, it's fair. I've seen a lot of like different opinions from cheers, and I'm open to different opinions. So let's go for it, I guess. If anyone has anything to say before we start, say now, or stay silent forever or something. I don't know. we'll start now. Let's stop the music and let's go for it. Let me know if you can hear the video when it starts too. Like in weather or in computer or in people, because these are very distinct different things. Okay, so in person is when someone is it's when someone is attractive. But then there's also like, well, okay, weather, like 30 Celsius and above, pretty much. But like, I mean, that's a pleasant sort of hot to me. It's like, it's hot, but it's still like, it's weirdly enjoyable. Like, I can recognize that anything above 30 Celsius is like kind of really fucking hot. But also, like, I kind of enjoy it because of this. For whatever reason, I just enjoy really hot weather because it reminds me of summer and reminds me of summer vacation and some like really nice days. So yeah, I'm able to just like go out on a day that's really hot and just have fun or whatever and just go to the beach because I'm blessed enough to. Like, yeah, I wouldn't, yeah, because here's the thing, I wouldn't call it, like, by definition, it's not pleasant hot. It's, like, hot, pretty much, to me. But I like it, even though it's hot. Anything above, like, 36 Celsius becomes, like, a little bit, like, even too much even for me, where, like, I am not able to do the stuff I normally do and stuff. Like 30 is pretty much just yeah, basic definition of just yeah, pretty hot weather, right? Like it's enough for you to say this to someone on the street, like when I start a subject, when I start a chat, like, oh, it's pretty hot out here today, huh? Like yeah, 30 Celsius I would consider hot, but it's also oddly enjoyable. But it's I that part I admit is like a very much a personal thing, a personal me thing. Anyway, well, let's start the video. Yeah, 36 is like insane. 36 is like genuinely insane. Like even for me, like that's the point where I can't like run anymore properly or do the stuff I want to do properly, and it's a bit too much.
Sonic Frontiers is a game, one would have you believe. But I
Indeed,
see
it's a game of all time.
State of affairs, an acknowledgement of existence. It's been out for a year now, and as with many Sonic games, it's already been exhausted as a broader discussion. There are many videos that have provided comprehensive outlooks, which I found agreeable, to the point where I never felt the need to share my own, but there's just one thing about this game that I've never found peace with. While I was intent on leaving my input at the fanbase's behavior beforehand, I must admit
can you guys hear the video just fine? Corin, can you let me know if the audio is okay, if you can hear what Jeb's saying just fine? And by the way, I like just starting off. That's the fucking Frontiers pool, man. The fact that he doesn't wanna, like, he can't just let the video he can't just not talk about the game. Like I feel like that's a very defining trait of Frontiers. Is like I jokes aside, no matter like how you feel about the game ultimately, and I imagine it's even stronger for people who actually don't like it. Frontiers is kind of an enigma, right? And even to me, like as someone who actually really fucking loves Frontiers, it's kind of an enigma because I can't deny that it's kind of a broken game in a lot of ways. Not on the same level as something like Scarlet and Violet, which similarly I also fucking love despite being basically just a broken game. But Frontiers in a lot of ways is indeed like the step forward people who like it say it is. But there are a lot of issues, and depending on what you feel about more subjective things such as like the story and whatnot, and how certain things bother you or don't bother you, you can like end up really fucking liking it or really not liking it. But it's still like definitely a different direction from like Sonic Forces and Colors and Lost World and all that. It is a different sort of direction than like the 2010s era. So a lot of people who didn't like the 2010s games still don't like Frontiers, but I would imagine it's not for the same reasons, right? Which means the game is sort of just kind of like a weird question mark. Like if you're saying it has the same problems as the 2010s games, like most of the same major problems, like you're just objectively wrong. The biggest problems of Forces and shit is that it was like short and like unambitious and whatnot, and Frontiers is anything but unambitious, right? Like, and it has issues, but it's anything but unambitious. And it has an in-depth story, even if you disagree on how like the characters are characterized and whatnot. It has a more in-depth story. It has more involved gameplay, 30-ish hours of gameplay, depending on how long you want to like brush through the story and stuff. So like I feel like especially for people who like it, it's kind of the effect ends up being, oh, you like it so much you want to talk about it, so we end up talking about Frontiers a lot because of this. And if you don't like it, we probably like, I would imagine like if I didn't like it, I would want to talk about it a lot, just because where it fails is very specific to it, and where it succeeds is very also specific to it compared to like the games that came before, like immediately beforehand. So like yeah, the Forces and Lost World and Colors and all that, It's in its own little vacuum. So, yeah, in a lot of ways, I feel like everyone sort of like kind of feels drawn to give their 2 cents on the game. Man, we're 50 seconds in, and I'm already giving a whole essay here. But yeah, let's keep going.
I've been staying late at the forensics lab, observing this key element. I was a little cautious about having a knee-jerk reaction to a new release, almost hoping that someone else would make this video for me. But as we reach the final horizon, it becomes clear that we're all being invited to reflect on the game once more. In accordance, I have to...
When did this come out again? Just so I can make sure if he played the DLC. 4 months ago, more specifically February 20th. Yeah, the DLC was already out, I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure, right? The DLC was out. The DLC came out last year, right? Yeah.
To finally
for sure.
ask. The story in Sonic Frontiers was pretty bad, right?
No.
I don't just think it was disappointing. Sure. I think there's pretty alarming stuff about it that carries some foreboding implications about Sonic storytelling in a way. And hey, if it sounds silly to be concerned about the writing in something made for kids, I just want to say...
It's not. It's simultaneously silly and not silly. Because... Okay, how do I word this? So that's a whole ass video right there I need to make. Just talking about video game discourse and the nature of video game discourse and how people get really fucking passionate about the smallest, most insignificant things that don't actually matter. And how there are positives and negatives to that. And where I personally feel people might be crossing a line that's not necessarily needed to be crossed, you know. But like I feel like it's okay. Like for a baseline, it's okay to care about the things you care about and to feel very strongly about that. That baseline, that's okay, especially because I do the same thing. I'm excited about the games now, and I'm allowed to talk about this and criticize where I don't like it and feel stuff about it because, I mean, it's life, man. Like, do whatever the hell you want. This is meant to be entertainment, and whatever you enjoy, you enjoy. Something I don't get, though, is... really depends, but, you know, when people don't like something and they get... And I'm kind of like... I'm not sure because we're really early on, and this is not an accusation. This is just like a gut impression here from the first few minutes of this video that I had already watched beforehand, and also just from the length of this video and like all the stuff he's talking about and stuff. I don't get when people dislike something so much. But like not in a... Because there's a difference. Sometimes you dislike something because it's disappointing. And you feel frustrated about it, so you want to let that out and like share that thought because it was the whole experience, right? But like Jeb specifically, like he had already said he had no hope for the Sonic franchise in a previous video. Like he didn't want to care about Sonic anymore, right? And like if it's clear from like the tone that he presents across the video, from what I've seen again from the first few minutes I've seen, he doesn't care about this game. Just thinks this kind of shit. So, like, what is your motivation for making a 2.5 hour video about it, right? Like, are you seriously that resentful about it to the point of wanting to do that? Like, just let it go, bro. People enjoy it. Let people have fun, right? And that's the point where, like, that's the feeling I get in my head that made me not want to watch this video by myself. Is that frustration that, like, oh god, are you seriously gonna complain about this? I don't want to watch this. I don't want to see someone complaining about a game that is very much enjoyable and fun. But then the objective side of me, like the critic side of me, the responsible side of me, realized like, no, I need to see his criticism. I need to see his points. And again, could be content. So here we are, right? And also, I don't know, because I just watched the very beginning. It might get clear as we go through, like, more or less what he feels about the game. But like so far, and from what I like, because I watched up to like minute 3 or something at most. Like everything seemed a little bit like too hateful to come from a place of sincerity, right? But let's see.
This is heralded as acclaimed comic writer Ian Flynn's debut in the official games.
So I'm gonna say I'm fucking biased towards Ian Flynn, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. Like, I mean, no, bias is the right word. His writing is the reason I'm such a big Sonic fan today. like right now, as in like over the last few years. I really gotta thank Frontiers and the comics for getting me back into Sonic as much as I am right now. Because I've always loved Sonic as a kid, and since I was a kid, and I've had like bursts of like really enjoying it and then forgetting about it and whatnot. The recent hyperfixation, the recent obsession, it started around near Frontier's release, more or less, and like alongside me reading the comics. So I fell in love with this guy's work, especially in the comics, but also Frontiers for sure because of the grandiose of Frontiers. But like in general, I really do enjoy Influence writing. If I do think none of his stories are perfect. No story is perfect, and there is room for criticism.
I highly doubt that he worked his way up here just to make kids stuff that no one should care about. Part of respecting the work he contributed is seriously talking about it.
Absolutely.
At the same time,
that is
I
true.
don't wish to exalt myself by asserting that I care about this game more than other people. I just felt like I was in a parallel universe upon completing the game. I could not believe the disdain I had for its story compared to the community's relative ambivalence at absolute worst. And today, I want to tear down the walls between those dimensions. I've got a lot to talk about, believe me.
Okay, that was kind of corny, but okay.
I guess
I would do the same kind of script though. I write it the same way. I do these same sort of corny things. But it's weird again. Like, if you hate the story so much, why are you quoting it, right? Again, the same sort of sentiment.
There's already a problem. A problem with
Here we go.
the establishing shot. Look at
What
that.
is-
It looks like SFM with a couple of light sources just wobbling around with the camera. That
Okay, here we go. That was the moment I paused before. That was the moment I realized, no, this is. I don't want to watch this by myself, but it is live stream worthy. I mean, I understand this is a $60 video game, and you're gonna have to, like, you're naturally allowed to complain about stuff this game doesn't have that other $60 video games have, and that's fair. It's your money, and Sega is charging you a certain amount for it. But I gotta say, like, this is insanely nitpicky. You're complaining about the graphics, and like this is a mostly dark scene that's an establishing. Like, it's a well-directed scene. It's a well-directed scene with a good mood. You're complaining about crusty textures when this is a lower budget game. Sadly enough, this is a lower budget game, and you can try to enjoy it as. We're gonna get to the animation quality. I believe but right now we talked about the lightings, the lighting stuff in how it looks like Source Filmmaker. Even though Source Filmmaker can look really good on the right hands too, but neither here or there. But right here, he's this is a well-directed establishing shot that maybe has some sort of cheap lighting effects and textures, but we have to understand this is a lower budget game that is running on a Nintendo Switch as well. Not great, but it can run on a Nintendo Switch. Just like the Pokemon complaints, this being so nitpicky about the graphics, is this really gonna affect your experience that much, right? But let's keep going.
That's not the Starfall Islands, that's just TF2 Sawmill. The pre-rendered 30 FPS cutscene, the textures, the reused Forces Eggman model. Oh yeah, we're looking at some next-gen Sonic over here.
Does this really bother you that much? Genuinely, does this really bother you that much? Sure. The fact that the perfectly fine-looking model from Forces is being reused, does that really bother you so much? Is that really that big of a deal that you have to point it out? Come on, that is. I'm sorry. To me, this feels incredibly nitpicky. And also again, the textures. It's fair because this is a $60 game, but also it is a lower budget game that runs on the Nintendo Switch, and I don't know. I'm trying to be fair here. I don't want this to be just rage, or let me know if I'm being unreasonable here, because I'm trying to watch this and be fair and be analytical. But I mean, I like this scene, and I can say all the reasons I like the scene. It has some pretty good direction, the music, the tense music, and the setup for the mystery in this game is pretty engaging, pretty interesting, early on, because it doesn't give you the explanations, and it's not super like, oh, I hate the hedgehog, like in the Forza's intro and stuff. Like this is a pretty nicely directed, moody intro with like some killer robot designs, and like the visuals never particularly bothered me. Like I understand that, okay, the model is reused, but whatever. It's not that big of a deal. Honestly, it doesn't affect my enjoyment of the game like at all. It would be nice to have a better looking model, an updated one. Sure, I agree that it would be nice to have it, but this is a perfectly fine looking model. And you gotta understand, this game is running on the same consoles as the Sonic Forces, right? Like, if Mario Odyssey 2 decides to reuse the Bowser model they had for Mario Odyssey 1, assuming we had gotten a Mario Odyssey 2 on the Switch 1, no one would be complaining. Like, if you were to complain, like, people would, like, fucking, like, if you were to post something like this on Twitter, people would, like, just jump at you for being, like, too petty and too meticulous. Like, who cares?
Oh, it begins. Okay, sorry. Continue.
Yeah, the animation in this scene does look a little bit stiff. This one scene right here, and I'll admit that. Sonic just sort of standing there. That if he says that, I'll agree, actually, because that is true.
Starfall Islands. How exciting!
Yes, very interesting. Oh, don't forget to stop by the church and drop off Lorraine's sweater.
No comment.
God, like, no, okay, I'm not gonna stop for every little offense, but wow, this game is presented like garbage. And now, I know that I'm talking about the story.
I do enjoy, okay, so I feel like the dialogue in this cutscene could be a little bit better. It's just this, how exciting is a little bit, I don't know. And the animation does look stiff in this cutscene. But the mood is alright. I like the music, I like the logo fade in. It still kept me excited going in. I was still like pumped. This didn't raise any red flags to me. But yeah, looking back, the animation in this cutscene isn't that great. But again, like, you have to understand, and like, it's fair that as a $60 game, some of the stuff doesn't look up to par. But at the same time, this is a low budget game. Fairly low budget game, comparatively low budget game, and that's not a good thing. That's not something the consumer should usually care about. But at the same time, like, people enjoy indies just fine. People enjoy old ass games just fine. Like, and we still can pay like $60 on an old ass game sometimes if we have like if it's a particularly rare game and stuff. And nobody's complaining because we understand the context the game was inserted in at the time, as in like hardware limitations didn't allow it to look better. And this is similar in the sense that it's not hardware limitations, but budget limitations make this game look kind of rough at times. And if you understand it in these confines, that this game was, yeah, it was sort of kind of rushed in a way because of a lot of complications, and it was very much like a lower budget game as far as like $60 Sonic game go. But like what they managed to do with the tools they were given is genuinely impressive either way. If I can go back to like fucking Sonic Adventure, like this looks better than Sonic Adventure 1 at least. Like I think we can all agree that. And this is not a diss at Adventure 1. Adventure 1 is a Dreamcast game. But if people can go back to that game and enjoy it just fine, just by understanding that it is a 1999 game, I think you can also sort of like give it a little bit of a like break and understand that the Frontiers is a similarly, not a 1999 game, but a low-budget game, or a mid to low-budget game, a lower-budget game as far as $60 games go, And like understanding that fact and understanding what we came out of, like I feel like it's hard to be angry at this stuff and be so nitpicky about it. Like, can we talk about the actual game and like the actual stuff that actually matters? The writing, the directing, the gameplay, which we'll definitely get to considering the length of this video. But like so far, none of these criticisms really hit me as particularly damning in like any way at all. Just sort of like little nitpicks that don't actually matter that much.
Presented like garbage. And now, I know that I'm talking about the story today, but we're not reading a novel. This stuff matters. Like, think of your favorite Sonic intro. Think of how awesome it was to boot up that new game.
That is true.
And let the vibe
that is
speak
true.
for itself.
I miss CGI
cutscenes. It doesn't have
cutscenes.
to be so extravagant. Could even be as simple as just playing the first act. It's your very first impression of the adventure beyond the title screen. But here, holy jeez, some of the worst is on full display the moment you press start. It's so bad that you're not even paying attention to what's actually going on, as evidenced by the fact that I have not talked about what's going on. This particular game, though, is trying to be more immersive, more atmospheric than your usual Sonic the Hedgehog.
It certainly
You
is.
wouldn't know it from the opening cutscenes, but it'll soon dawn on you just how jarring this is when you enter the game proper. And it's
I
not
enjoy
some
the
anecdote
tone
about how Sonic
for what it
games
is.
shouldn't look dire or moody. It's that there's no commitment to said idea with these forces animatronics waddling about, among other things.
I don't know, what
Frankly,
did
I
you
think
want the
notion of
characters
how
to look
these
like? Like, you wanted them to look darker? Like, yeah, the Forces models aren't perfect either, and the animations are stiff, but to me that doesn't show lack of commitment to the tone. It just shows the game didn't have that much budget. like it's fine. Do you want Sonic to look darker? Do you want a filter on the fucking character models or something to best to give off the aura of that this game is supposed to be a little bit more mature? Like the characters look like themselves. That's fine.
Games should look is a result of the franchise continuously botching new art directions and eventually regressing into stale uniformity instead of embracing variety. I don't care for it. I'd make a point about how sad it is that Sonic games look 2 console generations behind, but I actually don't need
You know
to.
why they look 2 console generations behind? You do realize this is a Nintendo Switch game, right? A console that looks 2 generations behind. Right. To be fair, like Nintendo can do some wizardry with that, but like that's not Nintendo. This game runs on Nintendo Switch, which is kind of maybe didn't need to. Maybe this should have just been an Xbox and PlayStation game, and it could have benefited from it a lot visually for sure.
Frontiers does that all by itself with the opening stage.
Oh God.
Blocky Green Hill recreation of the Windmill Isle tutorial, which isn't even favorably comparable. I can't believe I just said that sentence out loud, but I digress. So, I don't think the game starts very strong at all.
I think you're giving it a service to how cool cyberspace looks, honestly. Like, I feel like the reason why it's not is because Sonic sells very well on Switch. It like Forces sold really well on Switch. I believe Frontiers also sold like the best selling version was on Switch, I believe. So I feel like Sega kind of feels obligated to release it on Switch as well. But you do feel like the effects of that for sure. And like I wonder how much better this game could have looked if it were not. Exactly, yeah. It absolutely does, and that is absolutely true. But at the same time, I can't blame Sega because it was a business decision. And like I've always been a proponent of, you can make almost any game work on Switch with enough optimization, and I guess that's a sort of proof of it. But instead of optimizing the Switch version, you just made it sort of like retroactively fit on Switch. Like, oh, let's make sure it's not too good looking so it can work on Switch, because it was, not a backport. It was one of the main versions. But yeah, it absolutely would have benefited. I just don't see Sega doing it from like a business standpoint, right? Just feel like Sega had to do the Switch version. Probably developers were like, asked, oh, you have to do a version for Switch, right?
There's meant to be some mystery, some intrigue as you begin your trek across Kronos Island. The music is subdued, the sky is dim, and Sonic's friends are nowhere to be found. But the game has such little grasp on how to create immersion that this falls flat on its face.
No, I like it. It worked on me.
Never organically transition to gameplay, ever. And the tutorial is littered with start and stop disruptions, even if you're playing on New Game Plus like I am right now. The refreshing, ambient tone that Sonic Frontiers wants to convey is completely kneecapped out the gate, and when you see the sweeping landscape shot up ahead, you know that it's not going to get better. Ideally, a captivating tone would be able to carry even the most simple storyline, but in what's supposed to be the biggest Sonic game yet, that's lost in a sea of cascading foliage and flickering Mario Maker blocks. When I think of the
I feel like the pop-in is bad. The pop-in is very bad, and I'll agree on that. And I feel like the music does a lot of heavy lifting when it comes to the tone of this game. For sure, it saves a lot of like the potential like immersion breaks you could potentially have, like just looking at the visuals and stuff because of the weird pop in and stuff. But to me, the game looks consistent and enough to not bother me. Like my immersion wasn't broken. The moment that cutscene ended, and it was like the tutorial, and like I got a feel for Sonic. I wasn't like noticing these little issues and being like, oh, but the ring doesn't look that good. Oh, but the game is stopping me all the time to tutorialize stuff. No, I was getting a grasp at Sonic's controls and like understanding how it works in this game, and like listening to the music, hearing like the rain sounds there, like in that first part there, for whatever reason, like maybe it's I assume like yeah, this is absolutely just subjective. But whatever worked on me didn't work on him. And that's fair, because it is subjective. To me, my immersion wasn't broken because the tutorial sort of stops and goes sometimes to teach you stuff. I felt like it was still getting a hold of how Sonic feels in this game, and that worked just fine. The graphics look a little but not enough to like break my immersion. And the music does a lot to keep me invested in the mood of like, ooh, this is mysterious, ooh, what's going on, and all that. Like it genuinely worked for me. I was like, yo, this is so cool. This vibe is so cool. I fuck with this vibe. I enjoy this vibe. I wasn't thinking about those issues when I was playing. I was just enjoying the energy. And that's it, right? Maybe I'm just good at looking past problems. Like little problems like this, you know, which could be a good or a bad thing, depending on how you look at it. But just to me, like the whole thing about the immersion being broken or that tone being broken, it just doesn't stand true for me. It didn't break for me when I was playing the game. Those little issues didn't bother me enough to feel like that tone was broken. I feel like they nailed the tone, considering, again, the resources they had, right? Because I'm not about to defend the pop-in or the weird animations and all that. Like, that's not great. That's not good. But it wasn't enough to, like, actively, like, sabotage my experience or anything.
Most memorable Sonic stories, maybe I wouldn't say they're the best written of all time. They're not going to make the professors quake, but that's okay. Typically,
so
people latch onto these because the games will exude some kind of irresistible aura, and that doesn't just come from nothing at all. Someone had to make that art. There's almost always an intentionality behind it. So, without that aura...
That is absolutely true, which kind of like reinforces my own argument, because I can just tell that to me, Frontiers has this aura, and that's it. like we're gonna keep going, and it can keep going, and it can keep explaining it. But like any other issues that you point out, like to certain people, maybe not everyone, like to certain people, Frontiers just has this aura, and it clicks, and it works, and it has this energy that people like Sonic for. It brought it back. And that's super exciting, and like that's the simpler version here of like whatever. God, we're 40 minutes into the stream and 6 minutes into the video. We might actually have to split this up into parts depending on how long we stay here. But like you said it right there. I couldn't have said it better myself. I agree with that so much. Sonic stories don't need to be perfect. Honestly, like from an objective standpoint, most Sonic stories like are kind of bad. No, they're not great. Like you can. Again, you're not going to make the professors cry or anything. There's tons of plot holes that can be like dug up if you really want to, in the older stories especially. Honestly, like Frontiers is one of the more tightly written ones, actually. Like one of the most objectively well-written stories. Like from like objective good writing doesn't exist, but you know what I mean. Like it's one of the stories with like the most in-depth dialogue and the fewest like plot holes and shit. So. Like, exactly, yeah. For an edited response to this video, that's like 15 hours. Oh boy. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, depending on how long this gets, I'll just not edit this down and make it into an actual video because it will just be too much of a pain to do so.
Without that feeling, all the emphasis begins to fall on the dialogue. The product backs itself into a corner. Luckily, the dialogue is the thing that a lot of us were excited about even after the pre-release footage painted an ugly picture on the surface. Even in response to a story trailer which showed very little about the actual story, people could not wait to see what Ian Flynn was cooking up, especially in comparison to the last few games. So,
absolutely
yeah,
did
the
exactly
visuals
that,
are
yeah.
gross, but let's check out the actual writing. Since we're
Let's
taking
go.
things quite a bit slower than usual on the Starfall Islands, this leaves a lot of room for conversation. Amy is tethered to Kronos, while Tails is stuck on one of the neighboring islands. In other words, Sonic is formulaically trapped on a deserted island, leaving no one to talk to but one friend at any given time. It's rather forward, but yes, that means we're going to be individually bonding with these characters. Sonic Frontiers
It's
being
a structural
longer
thing.
game means that we'll really have the opportunity to sit down and look at these icons as full-fledged people. As close as they can be, of course. Sure, Sonic
Which is,
will be doing
in
most
my
of
opinion, one of the strongest points in this game's stories. That is exactly it. You said it.
the legwork, as he has been for years, but we finally have a chance to see something done very personally with these neglected individuals. And maybe, through that understanding, Sonic will be able to unlock the secrets of the Starfall Islands. For our first character study, Amy Rose.
Yeah.
Sonic, are you alright?
Me? You're the one who's only half here.
I feel fine, but that energy that was holding me prisoner went into you.
I've been infused with weird zappy stuff before.
Yeah. Okay. This seems appropriate so far, but I don't know. Something feels a little off.
How you feeling, Amy? I mean, what's it like being all ghosty?
Honestly, I don't feel that different since you helped clear my mind. I guess it feels kind of... detached?
What is this? Why
What's wrong with
does
this?
it look like this?
It's beautiful here, but there's a loneliness here. The land feels sad and empty.
Yeah, I got the same feeling. I think it's tied to the ruins, weird robots, and other stuff we've encountered.
Yep. Yeah, I could have probably...
And you never know how many new routes you may discover.
True. That's definitely correct.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
what's wrong?
Well, I see one problem. Talking to Amy is boring. Oh, now don't get it twisted. I'm not just referring to the composition of these PS1 cutscenes. I'm actually talking about the script, the written words themselves, regardless of interaction tone. Sure, it's
Okay,
varied and
I'll
sure
listen.
it's in
I'll listen.
character. We'll get to that in a minute. But neither of those things necessarily equal engaging. Now, not every conversation you have with someone in real life will be stimulating, I understand.
Yeah.
But in Sonic Frontiers, the dialogue doesn't feel like an exchange. This is apparent before even knowing where the story wants
disagree.
to go.
But-
Under the guise of natural commentary and reflection, Sonic will walk up to Amy, state something fairly obvious, they'll both exposit for a bit, and then Sonic will throw in something cute to make sure you remember that it's Sonic talking. Visual
Well,
storytelling,
yeah.
if there could be any at all, is virtually non-existent because Sonic
There
and
couldn't
Amy
be
have
any.
pretty much nothing to talk about.
But
So
it's-
they remind each other that, yeah, the grass sure is green. Nothing they say to each other.
Okay, here's the thing, right? The format Frontiers goes for, and I feel like this could be a problem, like a legitimate problem with the game if you want to dig into it, right? With like doing all the character conversations, like the ones that are optional and all that, right? Like the game kind of writes itself into a corner in a sense because it has to write however many conversations with each character on each island, right? So, like, of course, naturally, like, the writers couldn't think up, like, so many different conversations that are equally constructive to have the characters talk about. Some of them are going to be a little bit more basic, a little bit more, like, not that, like, revealing, because you can't have the character just go talk their heart out, like, all the time or something. To me, it doesn't feel like exposition. Like, genuinely, if I were hiking with a friend or something, if I were if I were to take a walk with someone and like, or I'm seeing a new different place and everything's weird and different and mysterious, It's like talking, oh, how's the weather? Like, oh, we weather today, eh? Like, we just talking, it's just starting a conversation, you know? It is obvious, it is implied, you're seeing it. But this is Sonic and Amy giving their 2 cents on each of the things that are visibly noticeable already. So, like, the interesting part here isn't necessarily, like, the quote-unquote exposition. More so it's seeing how the characters talk about it, you know? Just sort of hanging out with them, I guess. Which, I mean, it's not the most in-depth or interesting dialogue out there, but I wouldn't call it boring. It's nice to see the characters talk about different stuff, honestly. Like, these characters, I like them enough already by this point that I can just vibe to them. Just, oh yeah, like this is a pretty looking waterfall. Like that's not unnatural. I don't see how you're saying it's unnatural. This feels natural to me. Sonic is trying to communicate with Amy and try to make sense of what's going on here, because what the fuck is going on here, right? They don't know what's going on. It's a huge fucking question mark. So like. The vibe is too melancholic to be like too urgent, right? And like the situation is not high stakes enough where they have to be like in a hurry. So like it's not like, oh holy shit, what's going on? But it's still like they still don't have any fucking idea of what's happening here. And like Amy is stuck in like a ghosty different dimension. They're trying to like word it and try to express this. Like how Amy talks about how he feels detached. Like it gives you a better idea as to like how that actually feels like, and it grounds the characters a little bit more. I feel like these conversations to me, their work is like grounding the characters, especially because like there are enough conversations that are a little bit more constructive and have a little bit more meat on their bones, that are able to like do that stuff really well too. So like we have a mixture of some of the more like dense conversations, and some of them that are just talking about the environment because that's where they are. You know, it's just communicating.
There even shows you anything.
And the fact that they give, like, yeah, like you said, like, oh, he says the little thing to make you remember it's Sonic. Like, it's not that formulaic. He still speaks like Sonic. Like, there's a lot of analyzing and a lot of commentary and a lot of, like, this place feels like this. And it's very, like, it's definitely more deep than usual Sonic stuff. Like, a little bit more analytical, introspective than usual Sonic stuff. But these little things, they remind you that it is Sonic talking. And to me, that isn't necessarily like, it doesn't feel artificial. It feels like someone who's trying to be a little bit more introspective, but it's still themselves. Like, it's not just one thing in each cutscene. Like, Sonic still says quite a few Sonic-y things, or describes his feelings in somewhat Sonic-y ways at different points in the conversations. To me, it never feels like I forgot who they are until he says the thing, you know? It just feels like, oh, this is Sonic trying to be a little bit more introspective, because he's matured.
Dynamic, other than the fact that they are friends. Sonic goes fast. Amy cares for people. It's a whole bunch of facts listed in clean succession. It feels really awkward. Normally in a game like this, you would have the characters walk around with each other and give input as they go through the environment. And since Amy is like a cyber ghost, it should be pretty easy for her to travel with Sonic and actually, you know, go on an adventure with him. But
you know what? That would have been awesome. That is true. That would have been fucking awesome. Like, you'd have to adapt the systems to accordingly, because then what are the memory tokens for, right? But that sounds awesome. I would love that. If the conversations actually happen while we were walking around, at least like the ones that are not as substantial. I agree, this is a dope concept. I never thought of it. These conversations never bothered me enough for me to have to think about this, but that is a cool concept. I'll give him that. That is a really cool idea.
Instead, Sonic Frontiers has you collect memory tokens. So
like, let's not pretend like the conversations in the previous games were like the ones you mentioned were that substantial either. In fact, I feel like they were way less substantial than the ones we had in Frontiers. Like, whoa, my head's spinning! Hit all those Eggman's robots and all of that. You know, like just as a few example that. Look at all those Eggman's robots. Get a load of this. Like, most of the dialogue in like the Sonic games, they used to have like dialogue mid-stage, wasn't very deep either. In fact, I'd argue they were way less deep than the stuff in Frontiers. Anyway.
Can deposit them into the friend vending machine and be rewarded with this. Also, I'm not just cherry picking lame optional interactions, this is how you progress in the main story. And in that main story, this explainy pattern of speech is still present. If we're gonna tell a story with these characters, you'd hope that the baseline would be a fun or interesting time exploring an ancient civilization with them, but I just don't think that's the case. At least, not now.
Again,
I
I
guess
think
what
it
matters
is
for a
the
lot
case.
of people is that the plot sticks the landing, even if the moment-to-moment scenarios are a little stilted. Kinda like the inverse of how I'm not having my taint lit aflame by the plot of Sonic Heroes, but I don't give a shit because I really enjoy the characters and memories throughout. In
Man,
either case,
Sonic
context
Heroes
is
story,
key.
just as an addendum, it's sick in certain points. As in, like, the final boss is really fucking cool, and like the shadow stuff, like the shadow android setup for Shadow 05 is really cool too. The dialogue in Heroes fucking sucks, man. The dialogue in Heroes, at least the localization, I don't know. I don't know how good the original Japanese dialogue is in comparison, but also I'm just messing around with my fandom, like, don't worry. But the fucking, let's not pretend like the dialogue in Heroes was, like, really fucking good or something. It's not. It's the most basic, we're Sonic Heroes stuff, like, ever. There's no way out of marrying me. Like, come on, it's not interesting dialogue either. It's kind of dumb. Like, I like Heroes, and I can enjoy Heroes' story fine enough, especially when it has some really cool moments with Neo Metal and stuff. But like, it's not nearly on the same level as Frontiers. I'm sorry. You're really gonna defend Heroes over Frontiers, as if like Heroes somehow has like better writing. I just, there just doesn't get in my head. No, there's no fucking way.
Hey, if Sonic Frontiers has something to say, then maybe that's more important. So, what exactly is brought to the table by Amy's chapter of the story? Well, Amy's whole deal is that she wants to help this Coco reunite with their true love. Wait, Coco? Yeah, Coco. Great job. The teacher will never know.
Oh yeah, that is true. That is true. They're literally just Korok like ripoffs. I don't mind. They're different enough. But yeah, they're clearly at least inspired by Koroks. Which, I mean, this game is clearly inspired by Breath of the Wild, so what gives, right?
Sonic and Amy quickly
They have more of a story focus in this game than the Koroks have in Breath of the Wild.
find that aside from the killer robots, the only inhabitants
They're more
of this
substantial
island
to this
are
game than the
these
Koroks are in
Coco.
Zelda.
Upon helping a mommy Coco find her children, lights shoot up into the sky, revealing an indescribable symbol, and then
They fucking die.
oh, wow, gosh, that's pretty bleak. Jeez.
There you go.
Anyway, Sonic and Amy kind of just move on from that, continuing their initial search, and Sonic gets a little worried that they're wasting time escorting babies. He'd rather focus on finding the Chaos Emeralds so that he can take down the island's Titan and find Tails. Of course, it's not like Amy can really do anything to help him with that. She could probably just handle the Coco herself while Sonic takes care of the bigger picture, but whatever, they keep moving. And then, as they draw near the missing Coco, they receive a harrowing vision.
A genuine lore question I have about the Coco is how sentient they are. Because they're from my understanding, they're the wills of the ancients, right? Though they're spirits or whatnot. But how much? But they're preserved through data, right? They're digital spirits. They're artificial in nature. So, like, how much are the Coco like actually alive? Or is it just like sort of like a digital backup of like their general soul feelings thing? I don't know necessarily their memories through and through, but definitely something approaching that. A question I might want to ask Ian in this podcast, actually. Like, I'm gonna write that down. I think to ask that. Like, I think I should ask that. Like, how sentient are the Coco? Like, could Coco have just like tried to explain what they are to Amy? For example, like, oh, we're the ancients. There's this huge thing that tried to destroy us. Like could they have done that? I assume not because they didn't. I'm gonna ask Ian about that. I'm legit. I'm gonna fucking ask Ian about that. At least his take on it.
They were reunited right before the end.
Wow. I don't know what to say. I mean, when I saw this for the first time, I think I felt something. The ancients being depicted as predecessors to chaos, the Coco being revealed as their remnant husks. Love,
there you go, isn't it fucking
given
cool?
Significant attention after years where Sonic games shied away from it, and Sonic giving Amy space to recover from what they just saw.
Let's fucking go.
Sonic stories can be serious again. And maybe seeing an intimate couple sharing one final moment before an untimely death will invoke some deeper questions about Amy's affection for Sonic. Knowing that their time on this earth is limited, knowing that they could spend so much of their life together.
Oh, this is sad.
Perhaps Amy has never tried to have a mature conversation with Sonic about how she feels. And on this post-apocalyptic island...
But wait, this conversation fucking happens a little bit later. Her, like, goals and stuff. She doesn't have to be upfront, but especially because I don't think Sega would allow her to be. It's very clear that the implication of her conversation with Sonic later on, the one in the flower field, the implication is that I'm done being just a girl who likes you. I want to go out and help people by myself, right? Which is exactly sparked by, like, you're describing what happens in the game story. Why are you setting it up as if it's not going to happen?
Anything could happen. There's nothing
You just gotta get the subtext, man. It's in the
left
subtext.
to think about but where you'll be in the end. So, what will Amy take away from this event? And how will Sonic respond?
Yeah, this fucking conversation, yeah.
Hey, still thinking about the Coco?
Yeah, and more. I'm not sure what happened, but I know what I saw. A love that transcended time. I believe in that power. When this is over, I want to share that love with the world, even though it may take us far apart.
I know you'll do great. I want to hear all about it when you come back.
Come on, it's sweet.
To convey my thoughts on this scene, I've put together a little segment. I hope you like it.
There we go.
Amy Rose was a character that I thought was pretty cool, and it wasn't just
I've
me.
heard this argument
She's
before.
obviously one of the franchise's most popular. I think boiling that down to her being the de facto female isn't very appropriate because it undermines who she could be. I had always figured that the
She
reason
could
for
be.
her popularity was fairly simple. She stood out. She made a lasting impression. She's no Princess Peach waiting around in a castle, but she's also not like Lara Croft or something. No. Amy Rose is a joyous, energetic girl who proactively follows her knight in shining armor. Since day one, she's been Sonic.
What's wrong with her developing out of that? Again, I feel like the implication in the scene is exactly that she's growing out of just wanting to be around Sonic. And it's okay. It's literally what you sort of implied there. Right? And then now, I know this argument. I've heard it before. Okay, sure. But, my issue with it is that, y'all, Amy hasn't changed that much. They just don't want to emphasize her really liking Sonic all that much anymore. And she's matured a bit, which is respectable, character development stuff, Even if it's, sadly, a lot of it is off-screen, which isn't great, but I feel like a lot of it was caused due to, external stuff, right? But like now he's gonna say like they striped her out of all her personality, and now she's just some whatever. I want to help people type girl. When that's just reducing it a lot. There's just like if you read the comics, you'll see like how much like of like this new side of Amy we see in Frontiers isn't there alongside the side of Amy that still likes Sonic, and like she still likes Sonic in Frontiers. It's just like she's deciding to grow out of it, right? They don't address it in this game for better or worse. But like it's very clear that this is not a change in direction for her character. I mean, it is a change in direction, but not a complete 180. She still likes Sonic. It's just more subdued because a lot of external reasons and like what's considered acceptable nowadays. But also, this kind of benefits her character in a lot of ways because she can focus on other stuff. And the fact that they made it so she concluded that by herself, like in universe, that is good development.
Biggest fan. No. It was a very unique dynamic in a catalog of other popular fictional pairings, but what really made Amy so likable to me is that, starting in Sonic Adventure, she brought an attitude that could stand up to Sonic's. Through sheer persistence, she's one of the few people who can actually phase him. This would, of course, give her the courage to become a force of her own, wielding a giant hammer and eventually leading a group of friends herself. In the same way that Tails is inspired to become who he is, Amy is inspired by Sonic as well. But unlike Tails, Amy's not part of the team. Sonic doesn't normally hang around her because he clearly enjoys the chase. He also is just that much of a young, free spirit that he's not willing to slow down for a serious relationship.
He enjoys the chase? I never got that vibe from it. I mean, like, with her specifically. Like, with her, like, as in it's like Sonic and Amy. I never got that vibe that he enjoys her, like, chasing around him all the time. Like, to me, Sonic just genuinely was bothered by how Amy acted around him. Like, it's clearly not cool of her. She clearly pushes it a little too far. It was fine because it was just a little joke and stuff, but societal standards change and characters develop, and like to me, her not doing this anymore, like external reasons aside and all that, if it were explained in universe a little better, a little bit more overtly, it would have been better. It would have been better for sure. But the idea that she grows out of it is not a bad idea, honestly. I don't think Sonic liked that about her. I think he respects her more now that she doesn't do it anymore. And I feel like he respects her growth because he's still like... I feel like Sonic always helped Amy, like as in like he saved her in CD and Adventure 1 and to an extent, in Adventure 2 as well, the whole gunpoint thing, because you can't let another person die. A good person, a young person. Because Amy is a good person. But it never felt to me like Sonic actually liked her back. He kind of hated her guts. He just didn't want to see her die because he's that much of a cool dude, right? And then eventually they grew to be friends, right? And to me, like a natural extension of them growing to be friends is like a genuine, like back and forth of genuine respect with boundaries and shit, right? And so to me, that feels way more natural now.
There's no animosity. He'd still call her his friend. It's just kind of...
It was, I see your point in the sense that I feel like Frontiers doesn't address it enough, right? And it's very subtle about like what it can address, and I feel like a lot of the reasons why why Amy's character was changed was, of course, like upper management stuff, because like right now it's very easy to see how Amy and Sonic's dynamic used to be and be like, no, Amy is fucking problematic, right? Like it's the way she treats Sonic. It's not necessarily like, I'm not saying it is true or that she was problematic for sure, because it's a character and it was a running gag, and depending on how you interpret Sonic's reaction, he might actually like it or not. Like it's debatable for sure, but it can be interpreted as, you know, kind of like not cool of Amy to do that, right? Like not a respectable trait, not a good thing, not a good role model for the kids and stuff. So especially nowadays. So I feel like probably someone in upper management, Sega, said, no, Amy can't be like this anymore, right? And you see, like I feel like in the comics they have a better balance of it. because in the comics, they show Amy still like expressing, like we have these little panels where she blushes a little bit, or she talks about like how she still really likes Sonic and stuff. But it's not the, if I had to choose between the world and Sonic, I would choose Sonic. Shit, we used to see, like, remember that line, that like that stupid fucking line from 06, right? Like, that was not cool of her. That's not like, I don't feel like that's an admirable character trait, which if you want to explore her being flawed, that's one thing, but it was just sort of played as a joke, and to me just sort of always came off as a little bit ridiculous. So I'm good with Amy developing out of that. I feel like they could have done it a little bit more smoothly, as in like show us that development a little bit more overtly. Let us see how Amy decided to not be that much of an ass. Like, as in, like, that to be not be that obsessed with Sonic anymore. I feel like they could have definitely done a better job in showing us that development on screen. But if you, like, reading the comics and seeing Frontiers, to me, it's clear, like, the message that's being sent is that she grew out of it, but she still likes Sonic. She's just not that crazy about it. And, like, sadly, like, there are external reasons why that has to be. I don't feel like they want to address it anymore, right? They don't want to talk about it, and like that's sad. That's not like ideal. In a perfect world, I would love to see like an Amy story that like came out, like maybe as a little like small game or something between Forces and Frontiers or whatever, or like maybe even like a comic dedicated to her to show us that exact development. The moment where she realizes, I don't want to be so crazy about Sonic anymore. I still like him, but I don't want to be so obsessive anymore. I want to grow out of it and stuff. Like, I feel like that would have made the transition a little bit more smoothly. But looking at what we see from the dialogue in Frontiers, and also the comic that's also serves to sort of like bridge the gap a bit, because it has like both aspects of her character. Because we start seeing more of like the kind, caring Amy that we see in Frontiers, the one that actually wants to go out and help people around the world. Like, that starts developing in the comics. That's a plant that's sort of like a seed that's sort of planted in the comics, and then it kind of grows into what we see in Frontiers. But then also, like, in that we still see more evidence of Amy still liking Sonic, which she definitely still does. We just don't see it a lot in Frontiers, which can be a bit jarring, especially if you don't read the comics, which is also fine. Like, you don't have to read the comics. You shouldn't have to read the comics, even if they are canon right now. And they're really good, so you should definitely read them. But it should never be necessary for understanding the story, for sure. So there is a point there, I feel like, in how abrupt the change was, but I feel like it's a positive change for her character and how she's portrayed. A good piece of character development if taking the subtext into account. And I feel like it's the best thing the writers could have done, considering the circumstances of they're not allowed to do obsessive Amy anymore because of external reasons, right?
Their thing. This was also great because it meant you never had to think too hard to get Amy into the story. This sparkly little girl could just show up to a giant military base because she heard Sonic was being held there and wanted to be his hero for a change. It was a juxtaposition. It was fun. Even in some games where I don't think she was handled the best, I'd still enjoy seeing her because she delivered an impulsive yet passionate heart into each story. Over the course of a series, though, Amy's character would receive criticism for being an over-reliant creep, generally speaking. And like, for the above-listed reasons, I never really co-signed this talking point. For one, and I will say this matter-of-factly, I don't think we should even pretend that this is the same thing as actual real-life stalking and harassment.
I mean, yeah, they're cartoon characters. It's fine. As I said, it was fine. I don't think it was a major issue, but it could have been seen as an issue, and I feel like the new direction is more interesting. It makes her a little bit more, like, deep, especially if you take in the implication that she just grew out of that, and we're not pretending that never happened. I guess we kind of are, but, in universe, she just grew out of it.
They're definitely not promoting or downplaying this dangerous, scary concept. I just think Sonic and Amy have a specific one-sided bond that isn't meant to be anything more than cute. And even if not,
for sure.
Fictional.
But there are side effects.
Many cartoonish behaviors. If Sonic had a problem with it, he would say so. But maybe...
But he says so! He says so a lot! Read the fucking room, girl.
So much problematic as it is.
Like, I agree with him in the sense that, like, definitely, I don't think it was that problematic. I don't think necessarily like, oh damn, Amy is being such a fucking stalker, like this is a huge issue. I don't think it was an issue back then. But I feel like it was reductive for our character. It was creepy, even in the context of a cartoon. Like, it's fine, but if you really think about it, it was sort of like creep behavior, right? And it was played as a joke, and it was a joke, and it was nothing more than cute cartoony stuff, and it wasn't that big of a deal for me either. But like in universe, it's still sort of creep behavior, right? And it's still sort of like a neat little box Amy's character sort of used to fall into, which was obsessive Sonic fangirl. And of course she had more traits than that. But again, just close it off because I don't want to keep repeating myself too much. But just like I feel like you can have that, but like if you're gonna remove that due to external reasons that like force you, if you're gonna be forced to remove that for fairly reasonable societal like changes of standards and stuff, if you're gonna actually change that, the explanation that she matured out of it is genuinely so fucking good, right? Like, I mean, again, could have been done portrayed better. They weren't avoiding the subject like with like a 10-foot pole. But the best possible band-aid they could have gone for is what they went for, which is implying that she grew out of it, which is genuinely some neat character development for her. Because now we can say like, oh, wasn't Amy obsessive with Sonic back in the day? Like, isn't she supposed to be obsessive with Sonic? And then someone who's into it and gets it says, oh yeah, she used to, but she grew out of it. Like, it's diegetic change. It's a diegetic change in character based on like external reasons, right? Usually when we change character stuff for external reasons like this, because society, like something isn't as acceptable anymore, it's usually just well, let's pretend that never happened and just make the character something else, right? And to me, it really feels like Amy, despite it being a little bit more subtle, a little bit more subtexty, it is a diegetic in-universe change where she matured out of it. And to me, that's great because it opens her character to explore different stuff, right? Different stuff that isn't just that, and stuff that doesn't fucking come out as creepy sometimes, even though it is just cute, cartoony stuff at the end of the day.
Grading, and I can totally understand that. However, another thing that I really enjoyed about Sonic and Amy is that because there was something tangible to build from in the first place, people could kind of engross themselves in the possibilities of where it could lead. There was nothing saying they couldn't get together someday, or that Amy couldn't move on and explore new challenges.
And she moved on and explored new challenges. And that's fucking cool. We saw development in that. Yay!
To me, is that this could have been a narrative choice. Okay, so now that I've...
I think I see where he's going with this, and it's what I talked about. I agree. It could have been a more overt narrative choice. But I think it was a narrative choice. It just was subtextual because they couldn't address the topic due to Sega not wanting them to address the topic. But to me, that development did happen in-universe. It was a plot point, but it was subtextual. And that's it. That's where we disagree. Because you say it didn't happen. I say it happened, but it was not on your face. Pretty much.
Established the value that I see in Amy Rose, let me tell you why this...
Even though I agree that it could have been less subtextual and it would have been better. It could have been more overt, and in this case I feel like it would have been better. But I feel like, again, factors outside of the writer's power, pretty much.
Does not work in any way. Let's look at this closely. Amy witnesses the dying moments of an ancient and her soulmate after helping that same ancient's lingering spirit relive the event. What she says in response to this, directly to Sonic, who she has feelings for, is, "That was true love. I want to share that love with everybody." What does that even mean?
That means that exactly what you're trying to like get at. It means she doesn't want to share the love with only Sonic anymore. It means exactly that. But again, subtext. It means I don't want to focus all that on you anymore. I want to focus that with the world. I'm above now. I've moved on from just sharing that my love that I believe in with only you, who clearly like you have other priorities. Pretty much, Sonic has other priorities. I want to go out there and do something about it and make that actually have a difference. That's what she's saying, and that is the answer to like the will they, won't they. For now, they kind of won't because Amy has different priorities, and Sonic always had different priorities. Now Amy figured out she has different priorities too. She's still gonna believe in the love she always believed in, but now she's gonna redirect it at the world, other people, make other people's lives better and happier instead of like directing all that energy into Sonic, which clearly wasn't like showing that much results at all, right? That's exactly it. That's exactly what this means.
Thinking a statewide polyamory? No. It's quite evident that it's meant to be a canonical statement that Amy will take the love that she has for Sonic and
yeah, there you go. Okay, no, you got it.
To helping people generally.
Yeah.
How is that the conclusion she came up with in this context? Also, I like how Sonic's reaction to this is basically, nice, good to hear. What a defining character moment.
No, I feel like to me the Sonic's reaction was very much. So I don't know how to. Okay, let me try to think of how to word this. He was being supportive because Amy was clearly like she was. I don't know if the word is venting here because she was not talking about something bad. She had a realization, and the exact same thing you pointed out. Like you laid out all the pieces, buddy. You laid out all the pieces. She saw how limited life can be and how people can like go out like that in an instant, right? And how love is eternal and shit, but like you have to do something with it, right? And life is gonna end. So she realized at that moment, the thought process is, oh, shit, yeah, I am gonna die someday. Yeah, love is important. What can I do with that love right now that will actually make a difference when I die? And that's the realization she came to, which you understand. You got the subtext. That's it. You got the subtext. Congratulations. And Sonic is just being supportive. I feel like, yeah, it's a little bit of a flat response. Like there's not a lot of like character and like oh melodrama or whatever. But Sonic is just being supportive because she's like pouring her heart out into the speech and his realization about herself and what she needs to do and stuff. And Sonic is going to be a good friend who sees a positive change and is going to be supportive about that. He's not going to start going on his own little speech about it because this is Amy's moment. That's the moment where she just has to like go through this realization. Sonic is not in the position where he can really throw it back. He's being mature about it and being supportive, which is a cool fucking move.
And you might say, well, she didn't actually mention Sonic. She could just be saying she wants to do good things regardless of her...
No. Yeah, no, you got the subtext. I agree with you.
Exactly. The most basic connecting tissue between these two characters is not even directly brought up, and in fact, at no point before or after this do either of them remotely imply any sort of romantic tension in this game. Oh, wait, maybe there's this part? Possibly? Gosh. So I guess you could say that
I agree that it could have been shown off better, but again, higher ups messing it up. I don't think Sega wants to deal with Sonic and Amy's past relationship anymore. They just don't want to address it, and in many ways they could have just ignored it. The sort of like half fix they did here is at least a very graceful way to go about it, in my opinion.
Addressing.
If you're gonna have to like leave that in the past without even addressing it anymore, that's, in my honest opinion, just the best way to go about it.
Their dynamic at all. Instead, it's genuinely just Amy saying that she's gonna go out there and be a good person. No interpersonal drive, no real correlation to her own life, nah.
But there is. You got the subtext. You mentioned it. That is the subtext.
Take a listen to this egg memo.
It appears Amy Rose has been dragged into the mix. Clever girl. Tenacious. She's come a long way since being
I love the egg
in
memos.
my schemes to ensnare Sonic. It seems like she had some trouble finding herself. But when you hang around with someone with as big an ego as Sonic, self-identification has to be a challenge.
Hello there, audience. How do you do? This is Dr. Eggman randomly psychoanalyzing teenagers I don't care about. Did you know that Amy Rose from Sonic CD is now a completely independent woman who likes Sonic platonically? That is what
No, she doesn't like Sonic platonically. She just moved on from being so obsessive. But she doesn't like Sonic platonically. She still likes him romantically. She's just not going to pursue it anymore. Or as actively. But yeah, again, out of the ways they could have done it, without directly addressing it, this was the most graceful way they could have done it. But yeah, they were able to address it. It would definitely be better. But they can't. They literally can't.
I call character growth. Yeah, I think maybe they overreacted just a bit. Though you know what the best part is? This is not even a response to any of her recent portrayals, since they've already been minimizing her affections since Sonic Lost World. And let me tell you, I didn't like it there. Remember what I said about...
I mean, Lost World is just a crazy fever dream. I forget that game exists sometimes. Much more like the story, especially the story. Like the way she was characterized in that game didn't even register to me.
her not being part of the
Just Amy, she's there. She's just a toy of Amy talking sometimes, very occasionally.
Well, Sega's been trying to make her just one of the boys for a decade now with no fanfare, no story. I was cool with it in Sonic Boom because that was a different Amy, but it was so unnatural for me to even think that one day mainline Amy would just decide to keep her feelings on the down low. So perhaps this is just doubling down and creating an arc out of her newer appearances, except she literally was said to help people on a global scale when she thought that Sonic was dead in Sonic Forces, meaning she learned zilch from this experience. No matter which angle you...
Learn zilch. I feel like recontextualizing forces into this whole thing, right? That was a step in that direction. And Amy, as you mentioned, was kind of already drifting away from liking Sonic as obsessively since Lost World. So... okay. So... how do I put this? So... it's like Forces was a step in that direction, and she was helping people on a global scale after Sonic died. That could have played into her realization here. But it doesn't change the fact that, like, right before Frontiers, she was still here with Sonic, just sort of like doing what he does, right? And stuff. Like, she now, the idea is to completely go away from that. Like, definitively, I'm taking a stance, I'm making this, like, I'm putting this out there, and I'm really committing to it. This is her committing to an idea that has been growing in her head across the more recent games, pretty much.
Come at it from, this scene does not work, and more importantly, it's not compelling. All it serves to do is dilute the character in the safest, least committed way possible. They've made the mistake of believing that...
the safest, least committed way possible would be to just not address it at all. Which is what they did in, like, Lost World and Forces, right? She's just not doing the usual Amy stuff. Because they didn't want to address it.
She was not...
At least Frontiers sort of, kind of addresses it as much as it can possibly.
...her own capable person before, but now that they've matured her beyond that point, she is a character with no goals. Honestly, her dialogue in this game is so dry, but if you showed it to me with no context, I would not recognize it as Amy. Kinda like how Amy didn't recognize Sonic in Unleashed, and that actually kind of upset him. Or how about when Amy stepped in to defend Sonic from a table-throwing maniac, and Sonic just leaves it to her with gratitude and trust that she can handle herself. Their usual routine was already challenged, showing that it never had to define either of them as people, and was just the catalyst for Amy to inspire good in others. Amy was once a go-getter. Now, she's a no-getter. I seriously think she was a more three-dimensional character when she was hyper-focused on Sonic, having a wider pool of social interaction and a stronger sense of belief. I think I've made my case, but if
I'll let it go more a little bit more because I don't want to keep pausing all the time and keep repeating the same points and stuff. I want to hear what he says first. Because I want to make this interesting for you guys too. Like, if I'm talking too much, just let me know too. I'm trying to keep this unique and new and not sound too petty. I'm trying to look at this from from like a respectful standpoint here. So if I cross any lines, please let me know, right? Like, y'all, chat, please be my I guess my moral radar here. Just if I cross any boundaries here, if I say something a little bit too mean or end up saying stuff that is just unreasonable or just flat out wrong, let me know. Okay, like y'all are. I trust y'all. I believe in y'all.
You can tell me what you like about the current Amy Rose, past her having a cute design and being a
I like that she's characterized in a very... Okay, let's see what he says.
Caring, well-adjusted member of society. I would love to hear it.
Yeah, but that partially that's kind of it. I feel like it's interesting to have a character who, unlike Sonic, has a little bit more of like she's a little bit more reasonable, right? And that throws a more interesting, a different perspective on like the main cast that none of the other characters have. Because like Sonic is Sonic, right? He doesn't really care. He's kind, he is nice, he's a hero, but he's also fucking Sonic the Hedgehog. He's free as wind and stuff. Like, he's not gonna do huge humanitarian works and stuff. Or anything like that. He just goes out there and just bops some bots and stuff. Like, that's Sonic. Knuckles similarly fulfills his duty and punches things really hard. And Tails is just a kid, right? I feel like Amy kind of works as... Oddly enough, she's kind of become the moral compass of the group right now, which is interesting. She is well-adjusted, and that's interesting because no other character in this cast is as well-adjusted as current Amy is. And that's a different point of view, right? She's a different sort of character. It's cool to have whatchamacallit, you know how like in comedies you have the one who's dumb and the one who's still kind of dumb, but like he thinks he's a little bit smarter. So this is kind of like that, right? Like Amy is the counterpart to everyone else because she's more of a well-adjusted person now, because she does like freaking fitness boxing on her free time. That's canonical in the comics. Because she, this more so like reasonable and normal person than someone who can maybe like budge in and give the more grounded point of view to, like, she's still super powered, she's still energetic, she still likes Sonic, she still has the huge hammer and stuff, and still like up to battle and do all the cool stuff. But out of the main cast, she's definitely the most like man, what's the word for it? I'm forgetting the word for it. When the character, she's the everyman of the group now. And I feel like that's an interesting perspective. I think that's cool. It's cool to have an everyman, too.
Because we're at the apex of her identity now, and I cannot list a single moment. I'm done with that. For now. Meanwhile, Dr. Eggman has wound up in cyberspace shortly after hacking into it with his artificial intelligence. And we see here that his mouth doesn't move while he is clearly talking to himself out loud. It's not even like they stylistically cover it with his mustache, it just isn't animated. Dude, come on.
Bad buddy.
I gave this a pass when it was Sonic Adventure 1 on the Sega Dreamcast in 1998, but what is this? So...
I mean, if you're able to give it a pass once, why not give it a pass twice?
While Sonic's friends are stuck in trans-dimensional limbo...
Again, different context, but again, different context. Exactly. Low-budget 2024 game versus high-budget 1999 game. Like, do what you will with that. Sonic series has been through a lot. This game is kind of a miracle.
Man is completely stranded, not even able to peek into the outside world. Yes, that's right. The story is framed in such a stupendous way to where the characters are physically prohibited from doing anything at all other than talking. Do I need to say it? Am I really gonna say it? No, I'm not gonna say it. I'm just gonna put totally unrelated footage on the screen for no apparent reason.
There is no scenario to safely remove you from cyberspace.
Unacceptable.
No, yeah, for sure. I agree. Like, Adventure 1 is completely justified in looking the way it does. But Adventure 1 is justified in looking the way it does because of the time it released in. And in my opinion, maybe not to the same extent, Frontiers is justified in looking the way it does because of the context it released in, which is not the time frame, but the apparent budget that was allocated to this game. Which, I mean, then we can be angry at Sega for not giving this game enough money, but there's a whole lot of baggage because Sonic Boom happened and then Sonic Forces happened, and I feel like the Sonic series was not it wasn't in a good place financially until like the movie and Frontiers came out, right? And that isn't really the fault of the developers, that is the fault of like the businessman at Sega. Similarly to like Amy's characterization stuff that we talked about. Like that's the fault of not the team making the game, but the restrictions placed along them, which can be frustrating too, and it's okay to complain about that as well, but again, absolutely, it was more acceptable back in the day, and it's less acceptable now, but if you understand the context in which this game was created, which was basically with like sticks and glue and like a pat on the back, it's still kind of incredible, right? But yeah, I'm like, yeah, sure, it's a $60 game in 2024, that isn't like in line for that. I'm willing to give this game a pass because I understand that it was made on a smaller budget. But if you're not, then you're not, and that makes complete sense to me. It just still doesn't affect my experience all that much, to be honest.
Keep looking. Make it your #1 priority.
Right. So there actually is one other person Sonic is able to talk to on the Starfall Islands. Enter Sage, Eggman's
My girl.
AI given human form. Somehow. She's the new mysterious character of this game, appearing to be the one who's sending all these ancient robots after Sonic. Although this is made abundantly clear within seconds of their first encounter, Sonic would sooner believe that she's a victim of the island herself and not, the one who's trapping his friends here. Even after getting utterly wrecked
But she
by
isn't the
gigantic
one trapping his friends here.
he insists on having a candid conversation with her. Narratively, I think this is a problem. Because Sonic just immediately is like, yeah, I'd like to skip to the part where she's one of the good guys, it, of course, means that they're instantly telling you how this multi-hour character arc is going to end.
Kind of. I see where you're getting at here. But again, like, the characters are completely lost here, right? And what Sonic sees is a little human-looking girl with similar, like, aura effects, like glitchy effects around her as Amy was back in the day. Like, back in the day, no, I mean, like, just like, at the same time here, like, to Sonic, this would look like maybe a little ignorant girl who doesn't understand what she is either and is trying to put on a brave face that's also stuck in cyberspace like Amy is. And he, not knowing about anything that's going on or who she is, would reasonably assume that for first try to try and communicate with her. And when she actually throws out Giganto to fight him, and he realizes, okay, oh shit, no, he isn't talking to her anymore. He is fighting Giganto. So, like, to me, like, at first glance, I can see why Sonic would definitely try talking to her first before immediately assuming she is like an enemy.
Or at the very least, the game is saying, this
She's
is a
a
character
child.
arc, pay attention, there's a character arc going on over here. It's very shallow. Until the story gets to the point, Sonic's content with chatting Sage up like it ain't no thing, and these conversations usually go like this. Hey, so, do you want to tell me what's going on? No. Okay, but like, can't you tell me what's going on? No. What?
Again, also understanding that Sonic doesn't know what's going on. And this girl seems to know something Sonic doesn't. He isn't going to kill her, especially because she looks like a little kid, and she isn't being actively hostile here, because Sage, like it or not, isn't actively hostile all the time. She summons a Titans of Field Time, which is worrying, for sure, but it also confirms Sonic's suspicion that she knows more than she's letting on, or at least she knows more than she's letting it on, but she wants to talk about. So, like, Sonic is not going to fight her because he wants answers. So if she's not attacking him directly, she's giving him an opening to talk. He's going to talk so he can try to understand what's going on, because remember, yeah, he doesn't know what's going on here. He wants answers. Okay, you can argue it could have been like a little bit of like a physical, like, oh, he tries to attack first and like contain her once he realizes, oh, she is saying me all these titans. But yeah, probably, like, let's be realistic here. I don't think the developers had enough time or budget for that. And like Like, even if this were a game with a bigger budget, I don't feel like this would have been, like, that feasible, really. Like, adding a completely extra boss fight just, like, for these optional character interactions.
Oh, guess you don't want to talk about what's going on, huh?
No, go away. Please die.
Okay, but I'll be back to check in on you because I just know you're a swell person. I mean,
It's more like I know you were a lost little child who knows stuff I need to know. That's my understanding of it. Is that he's trying to get it out of her because to him she looks more like she's angsty rather than directly evil, which she is. He was right in the money on that. But yeah.
good grief. Yeah, if mowing lawns with Amy wasn't already exciting enough, Sonic and Sage established
I like the minigames.
gripping subplot as the only two characters capable of taking action. Since that is the overarching character focus, I'll wait on making a few comments. After all, I am trying to approach this as I would be playing it naturally. But, yeah. Hey, has anyone else noticed that when you walk up to Sage, her aura plays this stock, bubbling lava sound effect? It's like she's a gross school lunch from Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide or something. Oh man.
No, I didn't notice that.
Okay, focus. One supersonic AMV later, and I am juiced up for this next island.
You don't even mention the boss fight? Okay, I guess he's allowed to
Gotta
mention
be
the boss fight.
transparent. I can't
Okay.
really offer story commentary for the Giganto boss fight, even
Okay.
though it is one of the game's highlights. But I will say, it is kind of funny how Sonic's just like, okay, I'll destroy this giant robot because I was told to by a scary voice in the sky. And then after witnessing a foreboding glimpse of the Titan's pilot, he doesn't even question if it's really the right thing to do. Nah, everything appears to be as it seems here, but that Sage, on the other hand, well, she's just too much of a marketable plushie to truly have ill intent. As Sonic shrugs off the greater question
Yeah,
of what
she's a kid.
exactly Sage is trying to prevent him from doing, he comes across Knuckles on Ares Island. Yes, Knuckles. He's here. Go watch the epic prequel story on YouTube to find out more. They should.
It's fucking cool. I love that animation. It should have been in the actual game though, but like, I mean, it's not necessary for understanding what's going on. You can just assume he was stuck on cyberspace too. Might have been looking for it, just because he's connected to the Chaos Emeralds and shit. So like there are conclusions you can draw without like actually seeing the animation, even though the animation, ideally should have been in the game itself.
It'd really let you unlock these kinds of things in the game itself. I'm
Yeah.
thankful that they didn't put crucial story info in supplementary material this time, but still. Make
Yeah, I
no
wouldn't call this.
mistake,
It isn't as crucial as the stuff we missed in Forces, right? So
Sonic Frontiers prologue Divergence was friggin' incredible. The
Yeah.
atmosphere was on point. Scenes were
guess who
composed
wrote that?
with a satisfying confidence, and nothing felt overstated or forced. It was a pretty big surprise after the previous promotional YouTube shorts, which all felt limited by that fact. Never mind my tonal disagreement. This really composed a flattering image for how seriously they might have been taking the story this time around, with near unanimous praise given to how well the character of Knuckles was captured. Huh.
yeah,
I'd say. So, how did this translate to the game itself? Yay, don't worry, I'm not gonna go on another diatribe with Knuckles the Echidna here because his portrayal is adequate. Yeah? Pretty alright,
Pretty good.
I think. But,
Yeah, man.
I don't know, it still doesn't really do anything for me. Right
So
off
you
the
problem.
bat, it's pretty clear that this game wants to remind you that Sonic and Knuckles used to be rivals. Instead of Knuckles just being
Which
an
is a cool
ignoramus,
detail.
there's a bit of back and forth. Oh, that's kind of charming. In fact, it really wants to remind you that they're rivals. Like, holy cow, I think we get it. Okay, well, now that you've
what's
put
wrong
a
with some banter?
giant
I don't think he was that transparent about it, honestly.
spotlight over it, I do kind of have to ask. Do we remember why Sonic and Knuckles even had a rivalry going on? The whole shtick
Different
was
temperament?
that Knuckles is a really self-serious kind of guy, and Sonic is the opposite of that. So Knuckles would view Sonic as a sort of troublemaker, while Sonic would view Knuckles as someone who needs to get a clue. But it was the kind of thing where they were generally on good terms, they just had a
They
way
are.
of getting on each other's nerves due to conflicting priorities. Maybe a bit of a grudge, too. That's the key, though. It was kinda incidental. Sonic doesn't just see Knuckles and go like, ooh, time to mess with him. That was more Rouge's style. Sonic Frontiers has them constantly mugging at each other for just existing, and that's a little weird. It makes
Yeah, but
their
they're still
dynamic
friendly.
more one-note and less interesting to me when every major cutscene needs to include the Sonic and Knuckles quips, even when there's really no reason to.
Nice work, soldiers.
It's friendly
now
stuff.
let's link up with the main force.
Yeah, you make a great supervisor, Nux. Maybe try fighting next time, though.
In fairness, it is giving me some of that personality that I sorely missed on Kronos Island,
There you go.
so yay for that. Actually, I do think it is neat how Knuckles' archaeological know-how is the main subject of the island's optional interactions. Knuckles can deduce that the ancients were probably not of this world and that they settled on Angel Island before even the Echidnas. This is basically as much as he can glean from it, but still, it feels like input that is informed by his character. However,
Which is
that's
awesome.
also kind of the issue with the Ares Island chapter. While there's definitely stronger subtext than there was for Amy, it only really goes
Disagree.
that far. For example, Sonic has now seen with his own eyes what the ancients looked like. You know, they looked like Chaos, the guardian deity of the Master Emerald, the very same being that wiped out Knuckles' ancestors. I think this would be some pretty relevant discussion, but apparently Sonic does not think so. Doesn't address it with Amy, and doesn't even mention it to Knuckles. Instead, when Knuckles is telling Sonic of the visions he had in Cyber Purgatory, Sonic's like, whoa, visions? You mean like the visions Tikal gave us in SA1? So, again, clearly the continuity matters here, but not enough to where the plot will actually do anything with it. Here's another example.
I mean,
Sonic gets
I don't know. I feel like if both of them saw how the ancients looked like, with like the visions and shit, I don't feel like. I mean, it would be neat to address that more directly in dialogue, which Eggman does, but I mean, they don't have to talk about everything.
Ambushed by Sage, who fires a laser, which, oh my
He hits
god.
us nitpicky
Oh,
to me.
yo! Knuckles is actually able to do something. Holy crap! And
Whoa, whoa, whoa! Time out!
oh, never mind. That's a little too much activity, a little too much action. We can't have that with our protective parent Sonic here. Does anyone else remember the story trailer where Sonic runs over and throws a punch at Sage? What was that? Some Clash of Clans bullshit? I'm not saying I want Sonic to punch a child, but that's also not the thing that's concerning him. Anyway, it's actually...
That is partially the thing that's concerning him. She's clearly not telling something to Sonic that she knows, and Sonic wants to get more of it, especially because she looks and sounds like a child.
Knuckles, who tells Sonic that he's too trusting of this evil floating computer program, which is kind of intriguing. It looks like they're going to tell a bit of a reflective story here where Knuckles ends up swapping roles with Sonic. Having been a recurring pawn of deception, maybe Knuckles has grown distrusting, more isolated on the inside despite the numerous friends he's made along the way. He's seen the absolute worst that the world has to offer during his tenure as Resistance commander, and maybe Sonic hasn't because he was literally off-planet for most of the war. Perhaps the concept of preventing disaster through his own actions, without anyone's help, has been on his mind lately, only amplified now as he wanders the remains of another society. And maybe Sonic is struggling himself, now wanting to trust everyone he sees because that was what brought the world back when he couldn't do it alone. Nah, I'm just kidding. And none of that stuff is actually in the game. That entire cutscene was completely meaningless to Knuckles' story here, the role swapping being a coincidence, if not just misunderstanding the characters fundamentally. Instead, what happens is that Knuckles claims to see
No, I think it was intentional. But there's just a neat little thing.
ruins that look exactly like the ones on his island. But they clearly don't because it's just a generic bunker, so the game crudely displays a Sonic 3 and
Oh yeah, no,
Knuckles
that was
screenshot,
kind of dumb.
which
Yeah,
isn't
yeah,
even,
no, that
like,
was
hidden
bad.
palace
That
or
was bad.
something. The game
Yeah, it could
is
have
so
been
bad.
hidden balance. Yeah, no, that I totally agree with. That flash to Angel Island had no sense. It made no sense at all. And the cutscene would have been better without it, for sure. No, that I actually agree with.
Conveying things that it even pulls up the screenshot twice in one cutscene just to make sure you understand the location's importance. Seriously? Knuckles then draws the correlation between his people and the Ancients, feeling kinda bummed that he's alone on Angel Island as the last Echidna. Sonic reminds him that he's not alone. But then, this happens.
I'll admit, I do envy your lifestyle. Freedom to go where you want, when you want.
So do it. Get out there and live a little.
Maybe I could. But first, I need to be back to normal.
What? Excuse me? Hello? Hey, do you guys remember the last 20 years of games where Knuckles was not guarding the Master Emerald on his island?
Yeah, but that's less a problem with Frontiers and more a problem with everything else. Yes, he wasn't guarding the Master Emerald, and that was a problem with those games, how they didn't address the Master Emerald for some reason. Like, the fact that they're finally addressing it here, and now finding a way to actually fix the problem narratively is a step forward and a cool thing.
That was the big meme, right? I didn't dream that up. I even remember the positive reception to the 2-second Knuckles prologue teaser being, wow, we haven't seen Knuckles on his island in 20 years.
Which is...
Oh, wait, except for in the Sonic Forces prequel comic, which we said the exact same thing for. I'm starting to see a lot of patterns. Anyway, look, I agree. Knuckles should not be shackled to Angel Island, nor should every story he's in contrive some reason to get him there. I think the issue with it in Heroes was that it just sort of happened with zero explanation directly after 3 major games where the Master Emerald was his entire life. But you know, this limiting situation could have been solved by progressing his story. Something could happen.
Which is what they're doing?
Goals,
isn't it? Am I missing something?
Angel Island or the Master Emerald to allow easier integration, and it could also make for a standout event. Sonic Frontiers decides to address this by mentally transferring the audience back in time to the point where they can believe that the last Sonic game was Sonic Adventure 2. Then it offers an explanation for why Knuckles will routinely leave his post. That explanation being...
No, I don't think it's supposed to be like that. I don't think it's like it clearly takes place after all forces and shit. Like, I think the explanation is more to justify Knuckles being around in coming games in the future, right? And we just kind of like have to continue taking the issues with Knuckles and Heroes and 06 and that's about it, actually. Like, Heroes in 06, because he wasn't around in Unleashed, presumably guarding the Master Emerald. He wasn't around in Colors, presumably guarding the Master Emerald. He was around in Lost World, but, like, who gives a shit about Lost World? Yeah, say, again, well, maybe he took like, the freaking... day off or something, I don't know. And he was around in Generations, but it was Sonic's birthday. Like come on, give the dude a break. He can show up on occasion, right? It is a problem with the games where he shows up without an explanation before, but this isn't a problem in Frontiers for trying to address it. They're trying to fix it going forward, so it isn't a problem anymore.
Because his friend encouraged him to. Development. Like I said, nothing really offensive here, nothing that permanently damages Knuckles as a character, but where's the story? On its own, it's
said development.
In the context of the greater series, it doesn't make any sense. It's cool seeing Sonic and Knuckles.
I guess. I mean, not really, but when did Sonic make that much sense?
Yet I can't help but feel like that should have been earned. Speaking of bonding with family and friends, let's go see how Eggman and Sage are doing. So in the cutscene where Sage attacks
this music.
Sonic, she refers to Dr. Eggman as
Dun, dun,
father.
dun, dun, dun.
And, next thing you know,
Then the robot hit him again.
I look forward to your battle reports once we're home. I'll integrate you into my system, give you control of the whole EggNet. I'll have you network all my robots.
well, that didn't take long, now did it? I'm not joking. This is literally the next cutscene after the previous one where he was all, "Brr, I don't care, just get me out of here." Brr. But now...
Yeah, egg memos. Definitely egg memos.
Island number 2, she's his greatest creation ever. I really thought I missed something. I
Which you
really
did.
thought my game glitched out and I just didn't get a cutscene that I was supposed to see, but no. This comes straight out of nowhere.
You missed something. The egg memos. Yeah, they're exactly for explaining how Sage grew into being Eggman's, like, basically daughter, yeah. How Eggman started treating her as a daughter. That's literally what the egg memos are for.
You'll be a refreshing change of pace from Orbach and Cubot.
They are your creations, like me. That would make them like my brothers.
I suppose so.
I look forward to that.
Okay, let's just put that family subject aside for now. We'll talk about that.
Moonbeam, can you let me know, is he gonna address the egg memos, like later at some point? Because like he mentioned them before, right? When he was talking about like him expositing Amy's development, right? So is he gonna talk about how that whole development is explained in the egg memos? That they are literally there for that reason.
We will. I want to know, what did Sage even do that won Eggman's favor? Or yeah, better yet, why does Eggman even have stupid robots in the first place, to the point where he's surprised when Sage is supposedly competent? This kind of pokes a hole in the idea of him...
I mean, let's do a little bit of Eggman character analysis for a second. Let's put on our fancy character analysis glasses here and take a different approach to it. Because you're raising questions, interesting questions. Questions that probably were asked about the people working on the story themselves. You're assuming that this was done out of ignorance and not done out of intent, which is a sort of, in my opinion, a little bit of a bad faith approach to it. Like, you're wanting to dislike the story, and anything you don't get immediately, you're pointing out as an issue. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not accusing here, it just kind of comes off to me as that. Let's do a bit of character analysis here. It was my interpretation that Eggman always made these robots with sentience intentionally, because he is a rather lonely fella. And I've always been of the opinion that, like, ever since, like, Adventure 2, right? Eggman can be more than just, like, over-the-top evil scientist, right? I feel like we can do a more nuanced take on Eggman without making him, like, too good, you know, without making him, like, oh, now he's too relatable. I don't think Eggman should be, like, too relatable or like a morally great character. No, he should be evil. He should be fucked up. And he should have these ambitions. But remember that cutscene in Adventure 2? Like the credits of Adventure 2 where Eggman was talking about how he actually admired Gerald and stuff. I like seeing that stuff. I like seeing that side of Eggman. It shows to me that Eggman is, I mean, a clinically insane human, but still a human. Someone with emotions. He's not emotionless. He is anything but emotionless. He has an ego. He has a lot of, like, pride and a drive to do things, right, and achieve his goals. He's a very, like, theatrical, like, sort of, like, presentation type of dude. Like, if he were, like, the objective type of, like, let's do everything technically and I'll take over the world because I want power and that's it, he would be a very different character. Eggman is, by characterization, by definition, he's supposed to be emotional and, like, human and stuff. He's still very intelligent. He still is evil, but he's an emotional individual. He's an emotionally driven individual. And I like seeing these takes on the character where we see him being a little bit more vulnerable and caring about other people and feeling about other people. My interpretation, personally, like what I got out of this, and probably close to what the writers are thinking, I think. I'm willing to give the writers the benefit of the doubt and say it was intentional, because I'm pretty sure it was. Eggman creates the robots with like sentience or semi-sentience or like personalities and being stupid subconsciously because he's lonely and he wants someone who has sentience to admire him, because he is lonely and he has a fragile fucking ego, and that's the reason why he's the whole like he has like people with the strongest egos are usually the most fragile ones, the ones with the lowest actual self-esteem, right? So Eggman wants to plaster his face everywhere and create Eggman Land on his name and like take over the world and shit, like, because he's deep down he's insecure, right? Which is why he makes these robots with sentience, and these stupid robots with sentience, because if they're too smart, they're gonna see all his flaws and they're not gonna respect him anymore, and he wants to be respected, right? So that's why he created Robot and Cubot like that, because these guys are stupid enough to respect him and follow his orders, and they're sentient, so they're actually respecting him, and they're not following his orders purely on programming. They follow boss, right? And that's exactly what Eggman wants. He wants to put fear into others. He wants to be a name that means something, that actually has value, and people fear him and follow his order and stuff. And in this case, people is sentient robots, which is basically the same thing, right? So with Sage, it's more or less the same thing. Even though from the looks of it, she wasn't intended to have sentient initially, and she grew into having to be a little bit more sentient and actually like understanding who she is and having feelings and whatnot. And he was surprised by that development first, because he can make robots that are not sentient. Most of the Badniks, I would argue, they to some extent, like whatever emotions there are just the animals inside, right? And also all the machines and stuff, because those are not sentient. Not all the robots he builds are sentient. I believe Sage wasn't meant to be, but then she grew into a being with emotions and feelings and opinions and whatnot, and that surprised him. And that surprise, plus the fact that she genuinely still admires him, probably hit him in like a sensitive spot emotionally, and that's why he liked her so much initially. Like after it really hit me, it really hit him. It really dawned on him. Oh, she cares about me. Okay. And then at first he didn't want to admit it, and that's what we see in the memos and stuff, right? But then that's when eventually what grows into their father-daughter relationship, which is genuine, and it is an interesting facet to Eggman, if you ask me. Okay, character analysis done. This clip could be a whole ass video, honestly. Oh damn, I kind of nailed it.
Keeping idiots around just to make him feel smart or keep him company.
Exactly.
Sage is performing at peak efficiency. Makes me wonder where I went wrong with Orbot and Cubot.
You see, the more the game tries
It's
to
subconscious.
conceptualize everything, the more these questions pile up. But it clearly wants you to think about them because it keeps presenting them. If something isn't readily apparent in a cutscene, there will usually be some form of addressment in the completely optional and quite missable egg memos. The game has a constant compulsion to justify its own writing or presentation, which, I mean, kinda lampshades that it isn't good.
I can confirm Sonic has made multiple breaches into cyberspace and escaped.
Through raw talent and no shortage of tenacity, I'm sure. Impressive.
You speak of him with respect as often as you curse him. I do not understand.
I fucking love this exchange right
I
here.
hate that hedgehog. That doesn't change the fact that he is a formidable adversary. I respect him. I don't have to like him.
Remember what I said earlier about explain writing? Or what I said about characters stating their character traits? Well, this is a prime example. What natural reason was there for Eggman to say that? There was no
Because he's
reason.
explaining it to Sage because she asked about it. It is an interesting clarification, right? Yeah, it could be subtext, but clearly subtext isn't enough sometimes, as you're making it very clear. Okay, let me actually Eggman carpet bomb IDW. This reminds me of this scene right here. This scene is fucking insane. Where like Eggman, it's basically sort of like similar, where he clarifies that there's more just to his relationship with Sonic than just I hate him and that's it. There's a grudge here. There's a feeling like Eggman has to feel like he is superior. He has to prove that he's superior and win fair and square. Which connects to what I said before, like about how Eggman is actually insecure as fuck deep down. But also, like, yeah, at this point, Eggman respects Sonic. He's not gonna win cheaply because he knows how actually skilled Sonic is. That's a cool character thing. And it's interesting that there's clarification on this, right? To me, it's not that jarring. Sage asked about it, which is reasonable because anyone hearing that sentence would ask just that. When you know Eggman's supposed to be the bad guy.
For Eggman to say that. Sage is not the one being spoken to in this cutscene. It is actually you, Timmy or Tammy in the audience, that Eggman is speaking to. To convey the nuance, the depth of his conflict with Sonic, Eggman just lays it all out on the table here for you to dissect. But when I actually do that, I once again see a problem. This read of Eggman's character feels like a reckless extrapolation of one of my favorite scenes in Sonic Adventure 2.
Oh, he's gonna talk about it.
Eggman jettisons Sonic into the vacuum of space and watches him presumably explode in a fireball of glory. Only then does he bid his adversary a heartfelt adieu, finally admitting some kind of admiration when all has been said and done. Classic villain stuff. It elevated Eggman's sense of power by portraying him as a credible and mature opponent while acting as a graceful
I don't know if mature is the right word,
to
okay.
effectively piss on Sonic's grave. It's all about pride. It's all about that visceral intent. In Sonic Frontiers, though, nah, who needs any of those emotional stakes? Eggman just thinks about how good of an opponent Sonic is every day. Happy to vocalize that fact just so everyone is aware of his personal values. It's cheap. Sure, it's the same principle, but in execution, it is absolutely not the same. It actually subtracts from the depth he had before when it was unsaid or up to interpretation, depicting him as less secure and less human. And all that I'm saying here is put out on the second island. I can only imagine what this hands-on style of writing is leading towards. Oh boy. Okay. The gloves are coming off, because we're heading to Chaos Island.
The spatial anomaly that affected us seems to have left me in a digitized state. But those same energies are manifesting into some worrisome mutations for you.
Those sure are words you said just now.
Yeah, you know, just in case you didn't know, Tails is the smart one. Oh my god, wait, this also happened in Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric. You guys remember that? Wow. That game is almost 10 years old.
Shut up. It is. No.
So Chaos Island is where the game basically nosedives in quality. Not only does the level design complete its transformation into a bundle of Kishi moments, I'll leave you to figure out what I mean by that, but also it's here where
I actually
things are
disagree.
starting to make...
I think okay, you mentioned the level design there. Chaos Island definitely has a 2D sections problem. But I like Chaos Island because it's fun to move around it. And that's it. Like, I don't even have anything more to say. And it's not more deep than it's fun to move around here. It is fun to move around it. It's not as brain dead as Forces, not in any way, shape, or form. I still like it. But it does have an overuse of 2D sections for sure.
A lot of sense in the narrative department. Let's talk about Tails. Oh lord, here we go. Of all the character assassinations over the years, none are as widely scorned as what befell Miles Tails Proud.
Homie, you're so close to getting it.
Regressed into lame stereotypes of who they once were, bound to the sidelines, Tails was taken a step further. His very presence would elicit irritation or agony, becoming the immediate definition of an annoying side character, while masquerading as our lovable sidekick from Sonic 2.
True.
It was amazing just how whiny and ineffective he was written to be when the blueprints for him to be a badass were already established years ago.
There's no more time. We have to break into the fortress now.
Indeed, this is it. Our last opportunity to bring peace back into the world.
But when the battle ends, we'll have to start with Sonic. I mean, this Sonic.
Fucking Forces writing.
God. Like
At least we can bond in all hating Forces writing. Collectively. Dang it. Sorry, I'm still kind of sick, y'all. I'm healing. Like, despite all of this, at least we can all bond in disliking Forces. That's effing like most of us can agree with.
Scene with this kid. No doubt, all eyes were on Frontiers to help our man out. I'm sure that there's nowhere for Tails to go but up, so let's see it.
Sonic, do you think I can change?
What?
Did I get the wrong parts?
No, their hero didn't show. They're worried something's happened. It's like how I couldn't handle it after Infinite attacked. One wrong turn and I fall apart.
Oh. Hey, I didn't...
Okay, I'm starting to sense a pattern here. Everyone, okay, conclusion time. No, not conclusion as in we're ending here, but like big points, moments here. I'm gonna pause for a second here and let's talk a bit. A lot of what he's saying, a lot of what his complaints are about like characterization and stuff, are mostly like, oh, they're not acknowledging the parts of the series I like, and instead they're acknowledging the parts of series I don't like, pretty much like. So he mentioned like how Amy's character change and stuff and all that, and the lack of clarification on that aside, which I agree could have been done a lot better. He is angry about like the fact that the change was abrupt and poorly explained and stuff, because he liked Amy as she was in like the adventure games and the 2000s games and stuff. Disregarding what actually did happen in Forces. And it's important to acknowledge what happened in Forces, right? It's important to recognize that happened and that was an issue, and then do something about that. And I feel like this is what the story does pretty damn well, because it recontextualizes those moments as moments of Tails relapsing. Because guess what? People relapse all the time. You know, Tails, yeah, he's been a badass before, but he backtracks. And it was bad in Forces because it wasn't intentional at all. I'm sure it wasn't intentional in Forces. We're just being a dumb kid because that's what the writers thought he was supposed to be like. And now Frontiers comes in and it recontextualizes that as relapses, as Tails going back and being insecure because guess what? He's just a kid. he's literally canonically just a kid. So that happens. He's growing. And here's Tails finally acknowledging that and like, oh, I'm relapsing a bunch, but is this okay? I'm not there yet. I'm not at the place I said I would be back when I saved Station Square, for example, right? Why am I going back? Why am I so inconsistent, right? They literally say the thing, why am I so terribly inconsistent? Because Tails is struggling with that, which is a very interesting approach to fixing the issue while making everything still sort of make sense, right? Similarly, you complain about the Knuckles stuff and how, like, oh yeah, but he already was ignoring the Master Emerald in a lot of those games, and that's true. But like, it's easier to just accept that, like, those games were poorly written, and like, I guess what could have been done was addressing that as well, right? And just like how they address Tails' issue here in an interesting and clever way, right? But it's like, at some points they're gonna do things, and they're gonna take approaches that maybe aren't entirely hinged on your personal interpretations of the characters. Maybe they aren't entirely hinged on the things you like about the games and the games you personally like and the ones that mean the most to you. Sometimes Amy's development is going to hinge a bit on the fact that she already has not been chasing Sonic for the past few games already. Or how Knuckles, while again has been appearing without any explanation in Heroes and such, still is stated to be the guardian of Master Emerald, and that's continued to be true even today, even like the comics and the Sonic Forces prequel comic, which you read. So as he mentioned, it did show up recently enough for it to be, like a thing, right? For it to be like recent and canon and still a thing that happens. The best thing we can do is chalk those up to Knuckles just took a day off or something, right? That's the problem with those games, not the series as a whole. Whereas here, if Tails just ignored what he did in Forces, I feel like it wouldn't be as good as actively addressing it like they're doing here, right? To me, it feels like you're prioritizing the issues you can't find. Maybe that's not the right way to say it. It's like he's looking for problems, right? Maybe not actively, maybe not intentionally. And again, I'm not trying to blame him for anything. I want to stay respectful here and understand, like, okay, it's his opinion, and he's entitled to an opinion, and that's okay. That's good. It's important to have opinions, and it's okay to disagree. But to me, it feels like you're looking at each problem at the exact angle where there would be an issue to it. You're looking at each situation, each character, and each characterization, each cutscene, and looking at the most negative way possible at them, at the worst possible interpretation. You're looking at all the possible things you could possibly bring up that would tear it down. And guess what? You can do that with literally any story. You can do that with any piece of fiction. There always are holes to poke through. Literally, like there's always going to be something you can find, especially with such a long-running franchise. Like that is bound to happen. Bound to happen. Just like how I can go to the stories you like Heroes, and like as you mentioned, you enjoy Heroes' story, and I can poke so many holes through that it's not even funny. Many more than you can pull through Frontiers, and most can pull through poke through Frontiers. Like, it's so much more easy to me to find holes in those stories than it is in Frontiers, which is why Frontiers is absolutely a step up. But there's always going to be holes to poke. There's always going to be issues to find if you're really looking for them. And to me, it really looks like he's looking for those issues and finding things to be angry about. And like, there's not a single positive thing he says in the entire video, right? There's not a single. He's always just seeing the character. He doesn't give the benefit of the doubt for Eggman's characterization. He doesn't try to do character analysis of what is going on. And he does different interpretations. And he says how this one is bad, but then that other one is bad for different reasons, while not realizing that there maybe is a median between what the options you're like presenting here is. He's so close to getting it. He literally, like, he points out like the correct, like, or maybe like the subtext thing with Amy that I mentioned before he actually spelled it out. I was like, yeah, you get it. You get it. It's like how he understands, like, yeah, Eggman is supposed to be insecure. You get it. But you're still, like, you're being so freaking harsh about it, right? In a way that feels like a little bit, like, inhuman, I guess. Like you're trying to find issues with it. Like, there's not a single positive thing you said about the story so far. Mine is, like, a little thing here and there. Like, dude, I can assure you it's not that bad. I can assure you it's not that bad. It's not so bad of a story. And like, this is not me just like enjoying it so much. Because I know I love the story, and I'm gonna be inclined to defend it because I like it and it means a lot to me. Sure, I can admit that. But God, you're making it sound like it's the worst thing ever conceived by humankind. Like, this isn't the Sonic story. Like, as you said, Sonic stories aren't always gonna be perfect. Or like, they have never been perfect. They've always had little issues like this. I'd argue Frontiers had the least amount of issues like this. It's the most tightly written one so far. But of course you can still poke holes through it. And I can find more in the older games, the ones you like. What's so bad about this one having a little issues here and there too? That you can sort of find if you look for them and try to analyze it in a way that's unfavorable towards it. Okay. Okay, I'm done. That's it. It's this lack of benefit of the doubt. That's I'm not being mean here, right? Please let me know if I'm being mean. Again, I don't want to be the bad guy in this. I don't want to. I'm trying to understand where he's coming from, and I feel like in a lot of ways I am. But it feels like his opinions
didn't want you to, like... Now hang on a sec.
Sonic, am I a burden to you?
Wow, and how did you come to this well-thought-out concern?
Whenever there's a crisis, I'm either running away or standing on the sidelines. You're always rescuing me when all I do is follow you around.
Hey, who was it who stopped Eggman from blowing up Station Square, huh? And who broke me out of prison, or saved me from the Deadly Six's trap?
Then I'm wildly inconsistent.
So, we're really just going into this, aren't we?
Dude, relax. You've got brains like Eggman. Man, speed like me, and can fly with your butt.
Did he just look at the camera? So Sonic Frontiers decides to tackle Tails' mishandling very directly. And, many people really like this. Many people really appreciate the formal acknowledgement. I understand. I get it. But let me tell you anyway why I don't like it. To paraphrase what's going on here, the game is, in essence, saying, yes, Tails...
Hello, is my sounding okay now? Okay, am I back? What was the last thing you heard? Like, how long have I been muted? Oh god. Was it just now? Oh god. Because I went on a whole ass rant just now. That was recorded, right? Oh my... Shit. Okay. I might have to go back and check. Because, god, I just hit one... Okay. Oh, you missed some juicy stuff. You missed some interesting, juicy stuff. Oh, that's bad, actually, but fine. Fine. I guess that edited version isn't happening. He's talking about Tails. I was talking about how, yeah, no, I get it. Don't worry. It's not your fault. Oh, boy. I don't know, man. I went on a whole last rant. I'm going to check when the stream is done. Okay, it's fine. It's fine. We're having fun here. And anyway, I'm able to articulate my thoughts better now because I understand what I said. So at least for myself, as long as the video is. True. Yeah, I think we're gonna stay for another half an hour and then we stop and continue next week maybe, because or else I'm gonna sleep way too late tonight. Have you been around, Corin? Have you been, or did you leave just now too? Because I'm trying to figure out for how long I've been muted. Just lurking. Okay, but were you listening? Did I stop talking a lot over the last few minutes, or was it just now? Because, I mean, it doesn't matter, I can check later, I just wanted to make sure. Because I wanted a whole ass... I was not listening. Okay, shit. Fine, you were the only ones watching live anyway, I guess I can just figure it out later. Oh boy, because, yeah, I said a lot. I did a whole character analysis on Eggman, and I also did a whole character analysis on Tails, and Basically, the main issue here he's having with the character writing so far, which I can understand, is that it's a little bit on the nose about how it's addressing issues with the character writing in the series so far. And he takes issue with some of the ways things have been addressed and also what things haven't been addressed. And just my response to that is I can agree with some of what he said, and a lot of it could have been done a lot more gracefully with the proper time and money. But it really comes off to me like he's trying to find issues in the game rather than try to give the writers the benefit of the doubt and try to see where they're coming from. Immediately assumes anything that's not addressed is like not planned out, like as if subtext can't exist. And the times he considers subtext, which is also frustrating because you're so close to getting it. He's so close to getting it, but he also like he doesn't. He considers it like, Amy is trying to. What they're trying to say here is that she's moving on from Sonic, right? But then like he explains it how it doesn't make sense. But then that explanation can be dissected, and that explanation he makes for it is flimsy, and he justifies it based on the other interpretation that it's not, that the subtext isn't there, right? So to me, it really feels like there are some fair issues here, but it feels like he is not willing to analyze the characters and understand how that makes sense from a character standpoint. Instead, he goes, "Oh, that's on the nose. That's bad. It doesn't make as if that can't be on the nose and make sense for the character simultaneously." Because Eggman can be canonically insecure, which I think he is, and I think that's a really interesting take on his character. Eggman has a huge ego. He's had a huge ego always, but he's also always been human and always been emotionally driven. Therefore, he can have these moments he has in Frontiers where he admits he respects Sonic to Sage, and he can sort of gradually start caring about Sage, his daughter, because she respects him. And he also, he develops the robots with AI, like sentient AI, because he wants something to admire and respect him, because he has a fragile, flimsy ego, which is very Eggman if you really think about it. If you look at it, his dialogue from like Adventure 2, and he's talking about how he admires Gerald and wanted to be like him, and how like no one with such an ego realistically wouldn't be somewhat insecure deep down. So I think that's an interesting take for his character. I feel like, but then justifying it with like the one Eggman way, he says like, why did the Cubot and Orbot didn't turn out like this? Well, maybe because he programmed those traits into them subconsciously, or at least slightly subconsciously, because he doesn't want to admit to himself that he is insecure. Because he clearly doesn't. Right? And that's the thing. He doesn't want to admit that he's insecure. He has a massive fucking ego. But deep down, he is. That's why he clings on to Sage. That's why he complains about Cubot and Orbot, but still made them like this. Because he's insecure. It makes sense. Anyway.
Was an asshat in these games.
And Tails, the fact that he's inconsistent and the fact that they're recontextualizing those forces things with him being inconsistent. He's a kid. He's a child who can relapse emotionally, because everyone can relapse emotionally, especially children. Right? So he had this big revelation in Adventure 1 where he figured out, I don't want to be just Sonic's weak sidekick anymore. I want to stand up for myself. That's a good start. But then, Forces was poorly written, and Tails was a pussy in that game. and sure, right? That was bad because it was done unintentionally. And that sucked. I like the idea that they took that and recontextualized it as Tails relapsing emotionally and being inconsistent, because people are inconsistent in real life, especially children. And then Tails acknowledging this and taking the second step forward, which is realizing he is relapsing. And then from that, generate actual positive growth that takes more time than just one single character arc from a single game, you know? So in my eyes, the Tails thing is not only really cool because, it validates our fan, we don't like how Tails is currently in Forces and stuff. But it also is kind of genius because it recontextualizes those moments where he was quote-unquote poorly characterized, because he was. at the time, and actually makes it so it makes sense because Tails was just being a human, I guess, just being consistent. It's recontextualization. It's interesting. It's clever.
Special.
Character arcs don't have to be like a straight line. They can go back and forth, and that was not the intent when writing Forces, but they made it so it seems like it's the intent, which is why it's so cool.
You mentioned Forces, and yes, his writing has been wildly inconsistent, but if you just think about it like everyone having their bad days, it can be like character growth. There, boom, patch that right up.
Yeah, and that's cool. That's smart. You're making it sound dumb, but it's smart. It's a cool solution to the problem. Everyone has bad days, and it's not like, oh, everyone has bad days. No, I can make this sound a little bit smarter. Everyone relapses emotionally and mentally at some points. You might grow, but you might go back a few times. And it's not just, oh, you have bad days. No, that's how mental health works. That's how personal character growth in real life works. You just don't decide to be a better person, and suddenly you're a better person. No, there's ups and downs. And it's a really clever take on that idea to make it so like Dale's poor characterization was, they made it seem intentional. To me, that was genius, not dumb. It was a clever take on it.
I don't think it is. In fact, I think you're just making it worse, and I really wish you would just leave it alone. Look, I'm all for embracing the past. I don't like it when media franchises pretend that shitty things don't exist. Believe it or not,
exactly.
I would ideally want Sonic Forces to be contextually relevant, because it's supposed to be a major historical event. But when the character study of Tails in your atmospheric, open zone experience is literally defined by him being a bad character, does that really convey the message you're intending?
Again, Bora seems like bad faith to me. Seems like you're trying to see this from the worst why am I so bad at talking? Worst light possible. To me, it's not about him just being from a meta perspective, we understand that Tails was poorly written in Forces, and this is a fix to that. True. That is true. But the game does a thing where it actually makes it make sense in the universe. And at that point, it becomes a story about not how Tails was poorly written, but about how Tails feels insecure about his own mistakes. Which to me feels properly introspective and atmospheric for the introspective and atmospheric of his own game. But okay.
Are we really supposed to like Tails if all we have to say on him is whether or not he sucks? Instead of telling a new story with Tails that could be remembered for years to come, we've opted to extend his terrible reputation into one more game. Tails could just be written really well, and it would naturally convey that he's moved on from being a bitch baby. Like, you don't have to canonize, to explain everything. I think the audience is perfectly capable of filling in the gaps here, just as they tried to be when it came time to make headcanons for the previous depiction. You could claim it's being transformative with a concept that didn't work.
Exactly!
But actually is the arc here. Tails learns that he has to become a hero in his own right.
No, Tails realizes that it's okay to mess up. That people still love him. Even though he did did things he's not proud of. And he's realizing he's not proud of those things. And that's not the person he wanted to be. Even by the end of Adventure 1, where he wanted to be his own person. That was his arc in Adventure 1. What you're describing is his arc in Adventure 1. And now this new arc is realizing that he's not there yet. And that people don't grow in a straight line.
Go it alone in a future endeavor? Well, that sounds nice. It really reminds me of Sonic
Adventure!
Sonic
exactly!
Adventure 2. Shadow the Hedgehog. If I just follow you, I will never see the light. It's back to square one, disguised as some coming-of-age story. And hey, I'll admit it, some of these scenes where Sonic reflects on how Tails has grown up are pretty endearing in a vacuum. I like this part where Sonic holds off his cyber corruption until Tails isn't looking, trying to tough it out for his little bro. I like this part where Sonic intentionally holds his hand around Tails' intangible shoulder, simulating his sincere intent. This is a heartfelt detail that had to require some directorial input. If I just close my eyes, pretend that this has been some consistent 30-year voyage, and see Tails as a maturing young ward, finally able to fly the nest, then this is pretty alright. But when I engage with the story on the level it so desperately wants me to, it falls apart. And that really is all we've got for Tails here, by the way. It's not like this is some background element, it's not like there's layers to this. The game truly can only offer commentary on his sidekick status.
Okay, you guys can hear me now, yeah, just making sure.
Island? Well, if it's not more of the same boring observations about this inauthentic wasteland, it's something I don't think I can ignore any longer. This particular cutscene embodies it so well.
Okay.
I mean, firstly, I guess the ancient flashback animation budget's running low, huh?
It is, and yeah, I agree. That kind of sucks, but again, it's exactly that. This is a low-budget game. Sadly enough. Sadly enough, we have to deal with the reality that this game did somehow achieve way more than it should. So I'm just, since now you're hearing me for sure, I want to mention again, because I said this a few times, but I don't know if the microphone was on. Y'all, if I cross any lines here, if I start sounding disrespectful or bad faith myself, or say anything that's a little bit too mean or unreasonable or objectively just wrong, y'all, please let me know. Because I'm trying to be reasonable here, but to me his review seems a little bit too much emotionally charged in a negative sense. I can be sounding too much emotionally charged in a positive sense because I freaking love this game. I wouldn't say unconditionally because I recognize its issues, but to a level where the conditions that are there don't affect how much I actually love this game. So if at any points I sound quote unquote toxically positive or something, I'm not pointing out anything bad, or I'm just being too bad faith on how I'm complaining about his complaints, please let me know. I'm trying to be reasonable here. The whole idea here is to be reasonable and analytical, and of course my personal opinion and experience and feelings are going to get in the way of that, and that's fine, that makes sense. But if I ever cross a line here, please let me know. Okay, back to the video.
It's a bunch of lasers and explosions, you get the idea. That's fine. Although it's not like these normally look super good anyway, so I really do wonder what is going on over there. Anyway, Sonic and Tails watch the decimation of an entire colony, and I am not kidding, this is what they say immediately afterward.
So, that was a thing.
Oh, he's gonna complain about Marvel writing. He's gonna complain about Marvel writing.
Sure packed a punch. That was on par with Dark Gaia, easy.
Sweet Jesus. Stop. Please stop. You'll have to excuse me. I was under the impression that we were past the days of tonal dissonance in Sonic Lost World, but here we are, in the middle of a serious moment, literally, unironically doing the whole MCU writing meme. So
yeah, I know. I would argue. Okay. I would argue that in the context of what the characters are actually going through, as in Sonic is one snarky little motherfucker. He's exactly the kind of character to do Marvel humor, and let's not pretend that wasn't always the case. They were seeing a vision, right? A vision that came out of nowhere, that wasn't explained very well. Reminder, they're still very confused about what's going on here. That's the whole point of the game, and what I've been saying a few times already. They are confused about what's going on here. So they saw a vision of something really fucked up coming up, and Sonic naturally wants to light up the mood in character. Therefore, he says, that was a thing. I get it that it sounds like the Marvel meme, and it's been overdone by now, and if you take that into account, haha. that they fly now. That sure happened. But also like that was a weird vision that came out of nowhere of civilization being destroyed. Well, they didn't see the civilization actually being destroyed. Like it wasn't happening as they were there. It's just a random fucking vision, right? And Sonic was trying to lighten up the mood. It makes sense for him to say that.
That just happened. Insert superfluous reference for audience applause. Yep. It's about time we talk about the references. These...
Oh, the inflanisms.
So, look, a simple way to connect this messy...
a little fun factoid for those of you who don't listen to the Inflin podcast. He makes fun of these himself. Like, he's willing to make fun of his own writing. He gets it. He's fully aware of how much he references stuff, and he just laughs along because he likes doing it. And some people like when he does it, so he's gonna keep doing it.
Series.
But he gets how it's like maybe a little bit too much, and he admits that.
Together would be to have the characters acknowledge previous events, right? Well, yes, but typically in everyday speech or in other ongoing media, someone would do that subconsciously, whenever relevant. What I've alluded to earlier, though, is that the game dives out of its way to bring up every other story instead of just telling this one. In momentary execution, it often goes like this.
What a view! Makes me think of the falls and Mystic Ruins.
Please tell me, Sonic, why the Mystic Ruins waterfall in particular? Why not Adabat? I'm very curious.
Wait.
I don't know.
Are you saying
because they have to pick a location?
Weapon? Like on the egg carrier?
Yes, Sonic, like on the egg carrier. And also the hundreds of other beam weapons you see every day.
It's almost up there with the Eclipse Cannon.
Oh my god. Do you guys show up to a funeral and go, you know, this kinda reminds me of a time Shadow died in Sonic Adventure 2?
These are not equatable at all, buddy.
By Chaos I...
You're just comparing the power of like the freaking cannons, and the Eclipse Cannon is a good reference point for it. You know, like, I mean, it is a reference to Adventure 2, but I mean, like, if he's gonna take, so Sonic can understand how powerful the cannon is. Oh, it's about as powerful as the Eclipse Cannon. Oh, now we have a good reference for how powerful it is supposed to be. It's useful referencing. Sometimes it's not. And Ian Flynn does do a lot of Ian Flynnisms that are admittedly unnecessary. They don't bother me that much. From an external standpoint, it's kind of validating as a fan. I can see why they can be bothersome, though. And I feel like some of them are better than others. Some of them I feel are very much justified. Like that one I just talked about. It's a useful comparison tool, a reference point. Others feel more tacked on. But it never crosses that line where it feels like unrealistic for the characters to make some sort of comparison, right? Like, or like, yeah, you can remember your past. That's cool. You can remember your past. That's a cool factor, right? Maybe they overdid it a little, and sometimes it can be a little bit forced. But to me, it just doesn't cross the line of being entirely way too much forced, right? To me, it's just good enough. Good enough, yeah. Maybe dial it back a bit in the next game, but it doesn't particularly bother me in this one, and is admittedly a bit validating.
Island, it really feels like the game goes full throttle with these references, which I think if you have to consciously discern the ratio of that kind of thing, it's pretty telling how natural it is. Ironically, it makes the dialogue more robotic than it would have otherwise been.
I think it's fine for the characters to remember what happened to them before.
One, the story is self-aware of its lacking substance, and so it takes the path of least resistance by padding the dialogue out with fan service. No doubt, this will more easily satiate people than racking our brain trying to create something impactful out of characters just standing there. Or two, the story believes that this is substantive character writing, to which I'd say, oh no.
The references themselves are not, but the actual character writing is substantive, for sure.
An excellent example of why this is so terrible is, once again, the egg memos. I was actually pretty excited to collect these because I figured we would see the more observant, scientific side of Eggman. Left in a void that doesn't obey the conventional rules of nature, maybe we'd hear him go a bit stir-crazy, start finding some weird shit, maybe have his super genius knowledge tested to the point where he doesn't come out the same. I love the trope of diaries that tell a story all of their own, so what I find in Sonic Frontiers is that almost every one of these is just an excuse to pull up some zany deep cut, often with no prompting.
It's Sonic who named me Eggman. Except the joke's on him. I embraced the name. I made it my own. His mockery is now a name feared across the ages. I'm not going to adopt Baldy McNose here, though. My dignity has limits.
If it's not something as subtle as that, it'll be a quote which pretty obviously uses the current context as an opportunity to blurt out recognizable Sonic buzzwords.
Who were the ancients? They predate any civilization by a wide margin. The Echidnas? Pfft. The Black Arms? Please. The Babylonians? Hardly.
And don't give me anything about how,
it's cool that they're
some of this
referencing
is
it.
optional dialogue you may never hear. Shouldn't that kind of thing be, like, the really interesting stuff you want to find? Again, I'm just going by the character-focused vibe here. I think we've really lost the plot when flavor text in Sonic amounts to compulsively adding trivia every chance we get. Just slip it in, just put it, oh yeah, right there. Cute little, I wonder if they'll get this one. You know, it's like, I came here to experience something. Are we an audience of Sonic Wiki contributors? When do we draw the line where something turns from a neat callback into a cheap gimmick? I guess even all that could be considered trivial if there was a solid through line overall. So,
there is. You're just not willing to see it. That's my problem with your whole argument.
Sonic and Tails have their little problem to solve. The overarching plot with Sage is nearing its boiling point. Oh, am I skipping over a few pages here? What is that plot exactly? Well, throughout the game, Sage has observed Sonic's unrelenting kindness and persistence, witnessing...
Oh, by the way, you guys know about the loading screen detail, where it gets more round as you get across the story because it's supposed to represent Sage in her development. Cool stuff.
The power of friendship firsthand, which makes her little computer brain big confused. And that's basically it. But upon seeing the closest bond of all, that being the brotherly love between...
Oh, he's gonna talk about the ridiculous cutscene. That cutscene is ridiculous, and yeah, I don't like that cutscene either. The singing one. God, that one was just kind of a disaster. I feel like they were really going for something on that one, and like I'm willing to ignore it, but no, I can't defend that cutscene either. The one, this one that they're showing right now. It's gonna like da da da, like the stupid repeated like flashbacks from like a cutscene ago, and the corny like mistimed music and like no, that cutscene isn't good. I'm not about to defend it. I agree. If he's gonna say that, because I assume he will not miss that opportunity to complain about it.
A change occurs, and
oh yeah,
what?
No, yeah, exactly. No, I can't defend this one either. I don't like this cutscene either. I like the intent behind it, and I can imagine that at some point, like, the communications between, like, the writing team versus the animation team and, like, the game development team, like, something was broken up there that shouldn't be broken up.
I saw this for the first time.
No, like, this cutscene kind of sucks in execution. It's interesting in concept, and I feel like the problem here was lack of communication between the departments and lack of budgets, probably, because they didn't have enough cutscenes. Here, they had more Eggman Sage moments to show in those flashbacks, or literally just reuse like Sonic and Tails stuff. Could have worked really well, but I imagine like, oh, the composers were asked to do a really emotional song, so they did a really emotional song that would have worked better in another context. Cutscene that just comes out of nowhere, and the flashbacks they didn't have enough like footage, more they have more footage. It sounds like some stuff got mixed up there, and the idea was interesting, but the execution of the scene was yeah, no, I'm not defending it. It's not a good cutscene.
I laughed, but
yeah,
I did not just laugh. I laughed.
I cringed
for 5 minutes. I could not believe what I just saw. This has to be a joke, right? Sage reaches her key emotional shift with a 45-second montage of her and Eggman sitting in one spot, arguing for half of it, set to what sounds like the soothing voice of a child who's really trying their best at the talent show. No, it's not a joke.
I feel like the song isn't necessarily that bad. It just sort of like misses the mark on like considering the weird context and the weird placing in the cutscene. Because this sounds to me like, put this in the Klonoa 1 final cutscene and it fits like a glove, right? And nobody would think it's weird. But like this soundtrack at this cutscene in this moment, with how this cutscene itself is, it's bad. It's bad.
It's not even meant to be ironic, like showing that Sage has a really skewed perspective of love towards a vile man. No, it's played entirely straight, having this long ending shot and everything. One of the included flashbacks was literally a scene that was played 30 minutes ago. That is how little there is to this relationship. It's not like there was no time to build it up. It's not like nothing could have been done to sell this. Even the few scenes we did have between them could have been utilized better. Could you imagine if this exact thing happened in a 2000 Sonic game? It would be the biggest meme ever.
Yeah, it would. And shit like that happened all the time in those games, and it was bad there too. But we choose to ignore it because we like Sonic. We like the good parts of it. I'm not saying like, and I'm not defending the cutscene. Again, I don't like that cutscene. I mean, not this one. I like this cutscene from. I actually like the one from Secret Rings. The mountain handkerchiefs. It's just taken out of context, but it would have been a meme. I know. I don't like the Sage cutscene either. I just feel like it was poorly executed, but it had an interesting idea.
If I had to choose between the world and Sonic, I would choose Sonic.
Na 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 na
No, okay, that's funny. No absolution.
It was at this point.
You know what? You know, that is true, and that is fair. Again, if there's one thing we agree on this entire video so far, it's that cutscene kind of sucks. And like, okay, you give the example, and like it is funny. It is funny. Of like Silver doing that in 06. Like that's perfectly timed and placed. Like that was great. That was great. That was funny. There's a decent chance. Like, okay, the game did not pull that back in the day, but it very much could have. I feel like that kind of mistake, that kind of scene, would have been the kind of awkward, corny shit that would be in a 2000 Sonic game. For as much as I can enjoy those stories for what they are, like, it isn't a meme because it's not in those games, because it was not in those games, because it literally wasn't, right? But like, as you said, if it were, it would have been a meme. And like, it's very much in the profile. Like, I don't know if I'm sounding redundant here, but like, what I mean is that this cutscene is bad in the same way that a lot of cutscenes in the previous games were also bad, right? But you're choosing to like let that pass and still enjoy those stories for what they are, where this story is like the biggest crime against humanity ever for doing similar mistakes. And like, that's the one big mistake. I'd argue like a lot of the other issues you pointed out about the Frontier story aren't actually as big as some of the huge issues the older stories do have. And we still choose to like them. As I choose to like them, as you choose to like them as well. But that was funny. That was funny, and it is true. That scene would have been a meme. And it is ridiculous.
When I truly came to terms with how I felt, this story sucks, I said aloud to myself. It doesn't matter if it's better than Lost World, better than Forces. But wait a minute. That metric is exactly what it wants me to think. I realized here that, oh, hang on, it's not just fixing Tails, it's fixing Amy too. It's attempting to fix something about Knuckles, I think. And how we go about fixing these characters is to retread the stories we told in Sonic Adventure 1. Ooh, and we're even fixing the lore by conjuring up reasons to acknowledge all the previous games. Everything's canon after all.
I think you're ignoring the fact that this game does have a main theme, like a theme, not as in like a music theme, as in like a theme. The story has a theme and it has a purpose, which is exactly moving on and growth and like stepping into like actual different futures and actual tangible change, right? Amy's character arc in Adventure 1 still ended with her with her saying, I want to impress Sonic, right? So it's fundamentally different from what she went through in Frontiers. Tails' arc is very similar, but in Frontiers it's him acknowledging that he didn't fully commit to what he set out to do at the end of Adventure 1. And how maybe that's okay, right? It's about what you do with your future and how you grow from it. That's what it's supposed to be saying. That's the meaning. It's not that they're just retreading old ground for the sake of retreading old ground and fixing things for the sake of just saying they fixed things. Of course they are fixing things, and as a fan I admit it is validating to see those issues addressed, and it is external, it's not part of the story, but at the same time I feel like they justify it really well within like the character writing in like the in-universe explanations, solidified with a really like solid theme, because Frontier story is about something. It's about growth. It's about the future. It's about letting go of the past and shit, right? That's what Frontiers is literally like. That's the like one-way dream. Like the song is literally about that, and like the story is about that. That's the point. The point is to finally say period to those issues that go back and forth and say let's move on from it. That's the message the game wants to get across. It's about moving on and about how sometimes you have to take that step no matter how difficult it seems. Even if it may seem awkward, if it may seem challenging and stuff, you have to actually take that step, realize that something's wrong with my life and I gotta do something about it. Or, for example, that's what Tails realized. Like, oh, there's something wrong about how I'm acting and I need to actually do something about it. It's more than just repeating the same arc from Adventure 1. It's recontextualizing those moments from Adventure 1 and then everything after as, ups and downs of life. As not just ups and downs of life, as in like, oh, we all have bad days, but like ups and downs of personal development and how sometimes you really have to just accept that it's more complicated than just deciding you want to do better. It's growth is a complicated little thing as far as like our brains go and stuff. And Frontiers is about acknowledging that, but taking that step forward anyway and realizing when you messed up, not being mad about it, but realizing it can still improve after that. And we are always improving in every little step we make, even if we end up going back accidentally or doing things we don't like in the past. The future is all that remains. The future is the only thing we can change. And going forward, the best you can do is try to keep that change going. I feel like that's what Frontiers is about, and I feel like that's what he's missing. It's about, it's reinforcing a lot of the same points from Adventure 1, but the point is literally reinforcing the points. The point is literally realizing that no matter how much life tries to impede your own growth as a person, you have to persevere and try on no matter how times you mess it up. And not just because you messed it up, that doesn't make you a failure. It just means you have to keep trying and keep moving. God. Okay. We can keep going for a little while longer, but we already hit like more or less a planned time. But I think we can finish this chapter and then we can call it a night. Okay, everyone?
Except you, Chronicles. Now you might say, well, clearly this game is intended to be a refresher for Sonic. As such, they're just trying to re-establish everything for a new generation of players. Right. Except the way they do that is by responding to things only old players would ever care about. What new
But it's not necessarily just a refresher for the new generation. It's a refresher for the characters themselves. And for people consuming this, feels like a breath of fresh air. Like it's being very overt about what it's doing, for sure. But it's like almost like setting things back on course, right? And literally the story, as I said, like it's literally about setting things back on course to move forward and stuff. So it's not like it is both for new fans and for us. This new stuff is for us to understand the point, the theme better. That is, again, as I said, basically like setting things back on course. Literally, not only on like on a meta level, like they're setting the characters back on course, but the story's theme is about setting things emotionally back on course as an individual in life when you're going through your own issues and your own struggles, which is an interesting and a fairly like deep-ish, like for a Sonic game, like it's an interesting theme to explore, and I think they nailed it pretty well.
Picking up Sonic Frontiers and going, ah yes, I think I vibe with this Amy character. She really has a way of sitting in fields and complaining. I look forward to seeing what she's capable of next time. Next time, next time, next time. I ask, how can I trust that next time will be good when I see that the story we're telling right now with new character Sage is Krudzu? And how many times have been next time? It's pandemonium. But what I can say for damn sure is that the previous stories were never reliant on what could be, no matter how bad they got. This is not a story. It's...
Wait, Frontier Forces was literally, the only thing going for it was how it could be.
It's the
I don't know what you're
idea
saying.
Of a story. The concept of character. The signifier of existence. In other words, it's a Twitter game. Thus far, you might have noticed that I've been referring to the narrative in broad terms. They, it, the story, the game. I have not assigned blame to anyone or anything but the subject itself.
Oh,
but
no.
right now, before I go any further, I want to make some things pretty clear. I'm finally going to address the knowing smile in the room, Ian Flynn.
Oh no. Okay, here we
not
go.
Personally, of course.
Okay, not personally, thank goodness.
But if you're watching this, hi. As I stated before, people were really looking forward to Flynn's contributions here, me included. Once the game came out, however, a sizable amount of people would poke fun at the forced references, especially the ones with visual accompaniment. Flynn writing became a recognizable meme for a while, but even so, I would say that most were enthusiastic about the story this time around. Many would jump to Flynn's defense, quoting an interview where he said that Sega provided the story, backstory, plot beats, usable characters, and so on. So therefore, if you think the story sucks, it's not Flynn's fault, he just wrote the dialogue. Well, personally speaking, I don't really care who done it. I'm not here to create a smear campaign against someone who is working under parameters we will never know the full extent
So
of.
why are you calling him out on it by name? As if you're trying to make it so it's like his fault. Like make it seem like it's exclusively his fault. Which like, yeah, no, for sure, the name drops, they're his fault. He admitted to it publicly. Like the little references and all that, like the overuse of references even, those are like Ian Flynn has like admitted like he likes doing those things and he jokes about it. And like he took in the credit, he gets it, and no, we can only hope like he dials it down a bit on whatever next project like that next game is, right? But like that's a trait of his writing and one that we are aware of and he's admitted to. That is his fault, and that's okay. It's okay to say that.
Ian Flynn seems like
because it's subjective.
Incredibly patient, honest, stand-up guy who has been transparently answering as many questions as he can because he clearly cares about his craft. At the same time, though, I think it's a bit dishonest and dismissive to imply that he had no part in the story he was hyped up for at all. Yes, the people who were in charge of the actual game provided the premise to work with, but that's literally what writing for an established IP is. Flynn has made it known that his role was fleshing out those ideas and even contributing some of his own. If it's all just dialogue to bridge the gaps, well, I think the bombshell here is that the dialogue is the story, because nothing happens otherwise. There's a whole host of info Flynn has given which I could make declarative statements about, but I don't see the need, because even if he verifiably made choices I dislike, Sega published the game and is ultimately responsible for its final state.
So why are you
Could it not
acknowledging
just
him?
be that mistakes were made and that there is no culprit here? It's no secret that some things were cut or that certain scenes probably looked better on paper. Any number of things could be happening, and none of that matters to me because I'm discussing what is. People have been
That's an incredibly mature take. I'll give you that. You nailed it. That is right. I was afraid you were going to do the exact opposite of what you're doing. We were on the same page here. Fuck yeah. But also, I don't think you needed to clarify it then.
Protective now that we have a writer who knows Sonic on board. This fact alone means he's infallible, and as such, his writing needs our unwavering support. I find it a little strange.
I support his writing because I like his writing. That's it. Not only do I respect him as a person, but I like his writing. I enjoy what he has been doing. I don't think he's infallible, and I think he deserves criticism in a lot of ways. Like, he should be criticized. He's open to hearing to criticism when it's constructive. He said so. Like in many others, he can make, like anyone else, he can make mistakes, for sure. But like, I'm gonna make it clear, I really fucking like his writing, and that's it. Like, I like his stuff. So like, it's not like I'm gonna defend him, like, oh, shining knight in white armor or something. Like no, I can see where he messes up, but I still really like what he's cooked up here. So I'm gonna disagree with you in a lot of ways, but I don't think Ian Flynn is infallible, or that like the entire culprit here is Ian Flynn. This is the, as you said, like, this is the finished product. You fucking nailed this part. Like, yeah, you're right. Let's not blame put the pin the blame on like any single person, please. Like, that's not constructive. Let's not send death threats or, you know, say, oh, Ian Flynn is the worst thing to happen to the franchise, or any particular writer. I mean, cases aside, like, you know what I mean. Like, it's sometimes it's not about the person. Let's not make this personal, because it's not worth it to make this personal, right? We don't know these people. Like, even the people behind colors, which everyone likes to hate, right? And like, I don't like their work either in Sonic. The guys who wrote Colors and Lost World and Forces. I don't know them as people either. For all I know, they could be chill people, and they could, like, they just did what they were directed to do, you know? Maybe it was not their fault. I don't know. Let's not make this about them. Likewise, let's not make this solely about Ian either. It's a game. A lot of factors are involved here.
How we're so quick to make sure that Flynn's good name is not besmirched, while at the same time using it to dunk on Pontac and Graf, labeling them as the reason why the 2010s had awful storytelling. Is that...
I think their work is a good part of the reason, because it's clear what their style is, and they were clearly lended a lot of power towards those scripts, right? As we can see. But we also don't know how much of that was Sega directing, which she's right. So, I mean, we kind of pin the blame on them, because the fact that they were hired in the first place says a lot, right? Two guys who write comedy mostly and who aren't very familiar with Sonic. But it's not about them as individuals. It's about the choice of hiring them specifically, and the direction their stories have taken. That's why we don't like them working in Sonic, because the sample we have, like this subject, what am I call it, like, you know, what we can see from their work in Sonic hasn't been great. So we're gonna say, oh, maybe it's because they're involved, right? Maybe not it's their fault, but because they're involved, right? The moment they were no longer hired to work on Sonic, boom, suddenly the stories aren't like that anymore. So, you know, maybe it's not their fault, but maybe they had something to do with it. It's not like as in I'm attacking them as a person. Just like, again, don't want to attack Ian Flynn. He's totally right about what he's saying. I'm just saying, like, it's fine to associate their writing style with the writing style we see like in these games, right? Like, it's like we have a sample size of their games, and we know what games they tend to write, no matter if it's their fault or Sega's fault. In fact, all the games that were written by them ended up a certain way, right? It's not like it was just their faults, but there's correlation here. Maybe not causation, but at the very least there's correlation. So it's an easy way to just point out, like, okay, so these guys, they didn't write the best for Sonic, right? But it really shouldn't be about the individuals. He's totally right.
Were they not just doing their jobs, same as Ian Flynn? The point is...
Oh, let's read that. I don't know what they're saying in the tweet. Let's see.
Were they not just doing that?
Correction, getting that 1 million drafts for each game. Each draft not done. Very interesting.
Their jobs saying
It would have been interesting to see Ron Graff like it would have been interesting to see them working on a Sonic game without restrictions. I don't know if it would be good, but I'd be willing to give them a shot, right? I don't know how they would do without those restrictions, right?
The point is, I think it's okay to criticize what needs to be criticized, and you don't have to be out to get someone for it.
Yeah.
I know it's rich coming from me, but maybe we're overthinking this. Let
Yeah.
it be known that I have no ill will towards anyone working on Sonic when I put their work on blast, just the same as we did for games in the more primitive internet era. If I seem a bit theatrical, I just want you to think about that. Thank you.
That
so
was
Rhea Island
good.
is what I...
Okay, so we're getting into the next chapter. Oh, we're gonna see more Bubblecat stuff. Okay. so he is addressing Inflin again, but y'all, I think it's we hit about like a decent mark here. We can probably continue this next week, or maybe a bit earlier, depends on how things roll out for me here in my own life and stuff. But I do want to finish this video because we already started it, and it's been fun. It's fun to talk about it. It's just kind of worrying because I'm always afraid of saying something a little bit too mean, right? But what we're doing here, I'm just giving my own 2 cents, and it's been a fun time. So y'all let me know if you want to see part 2 of this, maybe next Monday. And I guess we're going to call it a night here because it's getting kind of late. We already hit the 3-hour mark. That's my usual metric for how long these streams should be. So yeah, thanks everyone for watching. It was a great time. Always happy to have you guys here. And well, see you guys next time. Good night. Thanks again.